Deep Fried Thoughts, it's the best podcast. Deep Fried Thoughts. Don't worry, we're working on a better intro. All right, dude. So, welcome to my lair.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate
of course, dude. So just to fill people in about, I mean, we really just kind of met through Instagram, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Have we met before that at all?
Yeah, I think we met one other time before Ali passed. I think we met like one time in passing.
Gotcha.
But it's like one of those things like we meet so many people, you know what I mean? And it's like
Absolutely.
if you're not directly connected, you're always just friend to friend, and then you hear the name and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know? Like Ali would talk about you and I'd be like, oh yeah, Carmen, totally. And it was like just one of those things.
It was funny. Same thing with Dave, and I just had to keep differentiating, knowing the difference between
the two of us.
Yes,
totally.
Especially when feuds were going on. I'm like, which one is this?
Dude, like that straight up happened to me so many times in the earlier parts of when he was starting to leave Yorick and Sons, because people would think it was me, and I'm like, I do not work at that motorcycle
funny.
garage. Can't even fucking turn a wrench, dude. That's not me.
Dude, I don't know if it's age too, and I've noticed that. I mean, I could just be straight up honest and start telling people, oh, I don't know that person, but a lot of the times it's like somebody will mention somebody as if I know them, and I'll just be like, am I just drawing a blank? And I don't want to insult somebody, so I just go along with it sometimes, and I find out later it's like I had no idea that person is.
Yeah. The worst is when you spent like a whole day trip with somebody, and they're like, how could you not remember me?
Right?
And I'm like, oh shit.
I left this out now. Now people know that I have my own mouse pad.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
My wife makes fun of me for that all the time.
That's brutal. She's got to be lifting you up, dude.
I know. She's just having fun. She likes to tease me about it.
Totally.
She's like, are you just in love with yourself? And I was like, no, it's fun. I was so excited to get like a setup for this specifically.
Yeah, that's brutal.
So, dude, I didn't notice any of the pictures when I was looking, when I was stalking you. Your eyelids are tattooed.
Yeah, they are.
Can I see it? What's it say?
Even you.
Even you.
Yeah, it's the last thing Caesar says before he dies. Says "E tu Brute," just even you, Brutus.
Nice, dude.
Yeah, and I got that, so when I'm on my deathbed, all my friends can decide what they mean to me.
I like that.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah. How was that?
it was pretty crazy. So I had Normal Rise, who's the greatest lettering tattoo artist in the world, to do it.
Where's he out of?
He's based out of California, like Los Angeles. He actually passed away during COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, rest in peace. Such an amazing artist. But he's been doing lettering. Like I saw him on Instagram right when Instagram kind of started, when it went from being like the filter thing to like being a social media, and that's like kind of when I found him, and I followed him forever. And then when I decided that I want to get my eyelids tattooed, I'm like, I'm gonna go to the best in the world. So I like hit him up on the gram, and he hit me back like almost right away, and was like, yeah, I'll definitely do it for you. I want to do it, but I'm booking out like 2 years out. And I was just like, oh, shit. And I'm like, okay. So I gave him all my info. And then he was like, if you change your number, hit me back and I'll change it. But I'm going to hit you up in 2 years. And I'm like, okay, cool. So 2 years goes by. I like kind of forgot about it, that I had done this. Like I always knew that I booked it, but I completely forgot. 2 years had gone by. And I didn't even bring it up or anything to him. He hits me up like around my birthday and he's like, hey, I'm going to be in New York in July. Do you still want to get your eyelids done? And I was like, oh my God, absolutely. Yeah, I totally do. So I ended up going there, and I was actually tossed up between Even You and Trainwreck, were like the two things I was going to get. And when I got there, he's tattooing at an Airbnb above Caesar Tattoo.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I was like, holy fuck, dude, I have to get Even You now. And like, that was it. And then, when I met him, it was like crazy surreal because he's like unbelievable, unbelievable artist. And so meeting him was like really cool. It was the first time I ever met him. And we sat down, we talked about the design, and he like drew it on like a pen, like it was like some weird scribe. And he looks at it and he's like, I like it. And he's like, I can take a picture of it. You can look at it. And he takes a picture and shows me. And I was like, yeah, it looks amazing. And then we just rocked it. And he tattooed it so weird. So I like sat in a chair leaning backwards, and he actually leaned over like my chest and tattooed like on my brow bone. And it was crazy, dude. It was so fast. It was done in like 5 minutes. He did both eyes in like 5 minutes. It was nuts.
How long ago was this?
Oh man,
because it looks
like 2018.
It looks like it held up extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, greatest in the world.
I mean, I don't even know what it looks like, but I had the inside of my mouth done.
Oh yeah, looks like the
read
inside.
it?
Yeah, I can still read hungry.
Yeah,
it's still on the inside.
That was like one of those weird things. I was just like, we were bored out of our minds.
Yeah, totally.
Let's do it.
It's insane because I just always wanted to get my eyelids done, and it's really shout out Lil Wayne. Like I saw Lil Wayne, he had Fear God, and I was like, that's the hardest shit I've ever fucking seen in my life. Like one of the coolest tattoos I think in existence. And yeah, and then I was like, you know what? Someday I'm gonna get my fucking eyelids tattoo, and I feel like it. And then that was it. Got it done. Even you.
Nice.
Yeah.
It took a lot. I mean, being married now, the certain things, I could do whatever I want still.
Totally.
But certain things, it's not worth, pissing off the other ones. So
you got to run it by her.
Yeah. So trying to get anything on the face was a bit of a stretch. And it was like, first I did before we got married, I did the little cross here.
Right, totally.
And then I was shocked. She was like, all okay about me getting a sword, but it's like hidden under my beard was how I sold it.
I can't even
see it. You can't see it, but if I want to shave it down, I could, anyway. But I was surprised at how comfortable I was with the face. I thought all the nerve endings, I thought this was going to be like absolute torture, and it was just like,
totally
able to zone out.
Yeah, I have my sideburn tattoo too. It's like not on my cheek, but it like comes down my sideburn, and I thought that was just really loud because it's so close to your ear. And when I got it done, it's just like that was the loudest tattoo I ever got. It's like buzzing forever, dude.
That,
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, the Instagram thing, I think when Instagram first came out, I think that's all my Instagram was tattoo artist, because it was like this whole world of, I mean, I'd imagine that stuff existed before, but I didn't use Facebook or MySpace before. I didn't use that to find, artists.
Yeah.
And that seems to be probably my favorite thing still to this day, not just for tattoo artists, but just like artists or niche things in general, and expanding outside of my circle. So it's funny because, I think like, oh, the algorithm is really good. Because like YouTube, I always say like, I love the algorithm on YouTube. It's like they know what I want to watch before I even know I want to watch it.
Totally.
And it's great. But Instagram, I keep feeling that way. And then I'll be talking and it's like, everybody's seen the same reel.
Right.
Everybody's seen the same feed. And we're not even following the same people. And I'm like, are we all just like slowly morphing back into the same circle?
Oh, dude, so bad.
It feels like that.
Yeah, it totally does.
And like,
especially with memes. Because if you like send, you know how like terrible it is. You send a friend a meme and they already saw it and you're just like, nah, me send you a stale meme, dude.
Right?
Yeah, it's brutal.
And so the other thing I've been thinking about is like, all right, back in the day, you'd read an interesting book and it wasn't like the book of the month and everybody's reading the same books at the same time. It was like, you'd get this book, you'd read it, you learn some facts, and you go around and you share those facts. Like, hey, did you know this? Did you know that? Then I think for me growing up, that was like my Snapple facts, right?
Right.
You got the Snapple facts, you're spouting these things off. Now it's like, I'll hear a funny joke and I'm halfway through the joke and someone already knows. And it's like, I feel like I can't have anything. Not that that's original, but I can't like share anything I learn anymore. It's like, oh, we already knew that. And it just goes back to like this being called like the, what do they call it? The age of, not knowledge, of information. The age of information.
Yeah.
But it's not as fun as I thought it would be because everybody has all the same information.
Right.
And now like with AI transforming things and wherever that's heading, it's like there's really not going to be anything to share. I'm like, what are we even going to talk to each other about?
Dude, I must have listened to those new Drake AI songs, dude, like 500 times each.
Dude, that was insane.
So insane, man.
So weird. I did you know what they were when you first heard them? Like, did you hear it set up like, hey, this is AI?
Yeah, both of them were presented that they were AI when I saw them. I heard the first one and I thought it was crazy because it sounded so like Drake and 40, you know what I mean? Like his producer, it sounded just like him. And I was like, man, this is so insane that this is not real.
It's weird, man.
Before we went to the studio, Joel, my producer, did the Ultra-Lite record. He was like, I want you to pat yourself on the back. You're like one of the last artists, who's going to go in and do anything without AI because it's going to be AI. The whole from here on, it's going to be AI. Like everything you hear is going to have AI touch on it to make it perfect. They're different.
Weird. Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, that's insane.
I got advertised earlier today for a voice AI app, and I can't sing.
Right.
But I would love to.
Oh my God.
I like fantasize about being a rock star, like every other kid that played Rock Band and can't play an instrument or sing.
Yeah.
That was me. And I'm watching this app and this girl just belts out this terrible voice and then she goes in and she's tweaking it. And I'm like, this can't be the same person. This can't be the same person because it sounded beautiful.
Right. And it just fills in the blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw
so
that,
weird.
I can't remember. Is it Logitech that made it? Someone made it where it's like AI for podcasts and you can like set up a pod like anywhere and you could be X amount distance from the microphone and it will fill in the blank of your own voice. Yeah, it will. I swear you could look it up. It's crazy.
I mean, I believe it. It's moving faster than I can even keep up with just learning what's even available.
Yeah, dude,
let alone
it's
details.
insane. Like, because it's happening so fast. Did you hear about the ChatGPT thing where the guy tried to make him $1 million? Did you hear about this?
Oh yeah, on Twitter, and then he had like offers to buy the company. Like within
that wasn't the thing
days?
that wasn't the thing that I saw. The thing that I saw, he gave ChatGPT, he gave it $600, and he was like, turn this into $1 million.
And I'm your human counterpart, right?
I don't know how exactly like the structure of it was, but he was like, he types it in, and then ChatGPT starts like trying to invest, and some of the investment sites has like has like a block, like a CAPTCHA, and it's like, I need you to fill this out to prove you're not a robot. Well, ChatGPT is a fucking robot. So what does it do? It goes to a labor hire and hires someone to read the CAPTCHA for it.
Okay, I heard about that, and I didn't know if this was real.
It's fucking real as
That's the
shit.
Same story.
That is probably the same story, yeah. But I'd only heard this side of it.
But that's what I mean. Like that's the guy who started the. Okay.
Yeah, and it's so insane because the guy at the labor hire who was like, going to read it, he was like, how do I know you're not a robot? And he's like laughing. And he's like, oh, I'm blind. Like the ChatGPT lies to him. And he's like, oh, I'm blind. I just can't do it.
Dude.
And then the guy like kind of flags it, and then they just trail it back to this dude who asked him to make fucking $1 million. And that's how it was.
Dude, that is wild.
That's
and it's
insanity.
Next it'll learn what it did wrong and how it can go further.
Yeah, full
Instantly.
Ultron, like full
dude.
on. Yeah,
It's crazy. It
absolutely
is
insane.
It is absolutely Skynet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird because like I do see the benefits of it, and I'm as excited as I am afraid.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's like, I always thought as a kid, you're watching these sci-fi movies, it's like, oh, this is going to come in like war against them. It's like, no, it's going to come in and you're going to be like, oh, thank you. You're going to welcome it into your home. It's like, Dracula doesn't come in unless he's welcomed in, right? Before he kills you. Well, we're welcoming Dracula in because it seems so good.
I've never thought about it that way, but it's definitely, it's actually that way.
I have that in my mind because I recently watched Reinfield or whatever. I don't really watch much TV as far as like, so I don't see trailers. I mean, I watch Netflix and stuff like that, but I don't ever see anything advertised. But there was this modern day Dracula movie that came out, and I don't know how you feel about Nicolas Cage. I like
Nicolas Cage.
I love I love the things that people hate. I just find very enjoyable. I don't look at him for a serious role. I like it.
Yeah.
But he plays Dracula in modern times, and it was like this very serious and very goofy, like the back and forth, and it was just ridiculous nonsense the whole movie. But anyway, they had like all the traditional things about not being able to come in without being. Anyway, that's why I was thinking that. So that's like I'm just telling people, anybody listening, you should go check that out if you like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Add it to your Cage Rage list. Have you ever Cage Rage?
No, I don't have a Cage Rage list.
That was like when we were dirt poor in Philly. If we had nothing to do, we would pull out the SD card, whatever it was, the hard drive, and it would just be Cage Rage file, and it was all the Cage movies, and we'd pick out like 4 or 5 of them, and that was our day.
And just let it rock.
Yeah, Cage Rage.
Man. Yeah,
anyway.
no, I've never done that. I can't say.
You're not missing out. You're not missing out on anything. Anyway, I don't want to get distracted by that. But so, as far as the AI, you said about you just put out the album, you're not using any AI. How do you feel about it? Do you see that as like a helpful tool that you're excited about?
So what's very interesting, I think, about AI specifically is for music, it will be able to tell you if something exists already, because you could type in like, I want it to sound like this, like I want this part. Like let's say just writing music. You're like, I want it to sound like this, and then you put in the thing that you wrote into it and try to get it to make something else that doesn't exist. So it might be a good tool, almost like how arpeggios used to be on like the old 80s synths. You'd hit it and the arpeggio would already be there. So you're like rocking an arpeggio and it just comes out like
what is is an arpeggio like just a preset?
Yeah, a preset line of notes.
Okay.
That's going to hit. And when you hit it on like, a classic like Yamaha or microKORG, you smack it and it plays the arpeggio like over. And it's like, that's a preset that it has on there. And so in a way, people would hit an arpeggio on the old school ones and be like, oh, this is the preset. I'm going to write my own arpeggio like off of this. So in a way, you could do that with ChatGPT or whatever music software AI there is. And you could make it so that you're using it as a tool to see if something exists or doesn't exist, or is writing it in a different way that you didn't think of, and then you can build off of that. But people aren't going to do that. They're going to use it and be like, I wrote this, and that I think is the worst part about it. But I think if you use it as like a tool where you can kind of look at it and be like, oh, this is something I would have done or would rather do or try to write off of that. Maybe I didn't do that for any of the record. But it is, you could be used it that way. But I think a lot more people are going to use it in the Drake AI way and write a whole song and be like, this is better than something I could have wrote and I'm going to put this out. So
yeah, it's weird to me because like I mean the most exciting part of life for me is human interaction,
Totally.
right? And we're looking forward at a life that needs none of it,
yeah,
right? But still gives us all the benefit. In fact, a perfectly curated version of the life you want. Like the whole your truth. Like I hate that saying like this is my truth. Because to me, I see like how that just doesn't work. Like there's a truth and there's not truth, but then there's different views.
Right.
So that is like we're walking into a place where there can be your truth. There can be your curated lifestyle to everything. Like, hey, I want to see
how you want it to be.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, I'm sure you've seen the movie Her.
I don't know if I have.
It was like a personal assistant, like in your ear with Joaquin Phoenix, and he winds up
I
falling
did
in love
not
with
see
it.
that. No.
That was way ahead of its time. This came out probably like 10, 12 years ago.
Okay.
And it was like all about this personal assistant that was artificially intelligent and started getting to know him, and they wound up falling in love.
Oh, no.
And I watched it, and I thought, this is going to be a weird movie. Instead, I was like, this makes perfect sense, and I could see how a single lonely guy could do this.
Could
like
do
this.
it, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying to remain excited about it. Like I learned last night about what Google's new AI can do for like the medical field. I'm someone that does not trust doctors at all. My wife's in the medical field, and I hear just horror stories, and it makes me so uncomfortable to trust like a doctor's diagnosis.
Right.
Anyway, and they were talking about just being able to put in some things and having like your personal medical information fed into the AI with your current situation, and it had like an 89 to 90% accuracy rating.
That's crazy.
And I was like, well, that's awesome.
Right.
Even if the doctors used it as like, just to see if they're missing something, and then I still go off I'd feel much more comfortable with that.
Right.
So like there is a lot of good things, but it's interesting how you had to mention like, oh, I didn't use that stuff on the album. I wonder, will we still care about that? Will we reach a point where it's like we just have to either assume that everybody's doing it, or do we have to like...
That's how
will it mean more to us? I think it would. Like right now, if you told me that, I feel like I would have lost a little bit.
If Drake released that song and it was, it was AI and then he released it as him, I'd be like, damn, this song slaps. But I think that it's so bad to be like, because I listened to it and I thought it was good. I thought it was a good song. And I thought that because this is so stupid, but I thought because it doesn't understand like how words work, right? Because it's not intelligent. It's doing things that it thinks is right. So it would like put a sentence together. So like one of the rhymes was like, I got a knife stuck in my back. What's with that? Like I thought that was amazing. Like that line is awesome, but it doesn't really it doesn't know why that's amazing. It's just putting those together because it rhymes and it knows that if someone stuck a knife in your back, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Like that there's a negative connotation.
Yeah, there's like something negative to that. It's like, what's with that? And that's what it's adding on. I thought that's like so brilliant, but at the same time, it's not smart. It's just doing that because it thought. So with Drake, I think Drake is very clever. I love him as a lyricist, and like that would have been awesome. But now it gets to this point where if he would have released that, how am I supposed to know that he didn't do that? You know what I mean? Without his honesty as an artist. And now you're like holding up because like, remember there was like that huge thing about him ghostwriting forever ago? It was like when Views came out, like right around then. And like people said like, you have a bunch of ghostwriters. And one of them was like, they were saying some 16-year-old kid was like writing all of his songs. And like, I was like, man, like, I don't even know what to say. Cause it's like, didn't he curate now a team of people to help him write, almost like a band? So he like curated the perfect thing for the perfect sound. And I'm like, okay. But then that goes to, that's human interaction. That's not AI.
That's actually a good point, because years ago when the whole Kanye jumping up on stage and saying you don't deserve... Anyway, I don't know if they were correlated. I think it was when they brought up about how Beyonce like made her own music, and then people on the internet were like, look at the list of people credited for this album.
Yeah.
And it was like an insane list.
Yeah, they have a crazy team.
But her album didn't do poorly because of it. Her album did great. So nobody cared that she was just like a cog in the wheel.
Right. They really don't care.
Yeah.
The only way it really cares is like in like a local scene level. Like if you're like, I had someone else come in here and write this, and they're like, you didn't write that, and like scoff at you.
Absolutely.
Like I don't know. That's like when it's like a more personal thing, but that's like there's this line where like you start to become famous and people don't fucking care what you do because they know who you are. You know what I mean? Like Kanye or Drake or Taylor Swift or Beyonce, like you're saying. Like those people are larger than life individuals, and like they have endless amount of resources. They're backed by an endless amount of people. And they could pretty much do whatever they want as long as people are still listening to it or they're interested in them. Now, if any of those people became magically irrelevant, you know, but that wouldn't happen. But if they did, then if they had somebody come and write it, they'd probably be like, oh, we don't care about this anymore, you know, because you didn't do it and so did it. But like, you know, whoever does it, you know.
It makes a lot of sense, especially like you said on like the lower level. So, or not lower level, but the more personal level. The word person, that's what I was trying to remember what you said.
It's definitely, it's like it's like a personal level. They make it.
The fact that matters, I think that will still keep that personal culture,
right?
You know, tied, because that's what I really don't want to lose. I don't want to lose the personal interaction,
right? Totally.
And I don't want to lose it in a way that I don't even care. Like I want to save myself from reaching that point.
Yeah,
you
man.
know, before it
absolutely.
happens.
I mean, it goes for like if you're going to read a book and the book is completely generated by AI, those opinions you have about that book are your own. Like that's the only thing you took from that is like perspective. Like you read this book that's completely artificial, and you're like, oh, this is just my perspective on this or what I like about it. And that's your takeaway. And like, then people, you know, will say like, oh, well, you know, you could do that with anything in life. And you're like, fuck, man. Well, I could do that with anything in life. And that's where it's this weird fucking gray period in between, you know, human interaction and artificial intelligence.
So you mentioned writing a book. I was messing around with ChatGPT for the first time, actually seriously looking for a useful, or looking for a place where it could be useful in my life. And I was looking online. I'm always looking for like ways to improve the podcast because I think the biggest issue with the podcast, I don't want to say issue because I don't want to, is me. I probably could use more improvement than painting this wall. You know what I mean? So I'm always looking for self-improvement to make this more entertaining because I want to be able to have as many different people on here as I want. So, in searching for that, I waste a lot of time on YouTube listening to these long videos and watching the ads that they sneak in there past the paid, you know, YouTube account. And I was like, man, this is like a lot. And I was looking for something specific. And so I went to ChatGPT. I said, hey, ChatGPT. Or I said, hey. That's right. I started out by hello instead of saying, hey, stupid robot or something where I'm just messing with it and trying to like find out where its limits are. Like I'll think, I wonder if I can do that. And I challenge it. It can't. And I go, all right, it's dumb. This time I went in and I was like, all right, I'm going to treat this like a person and see if it treats me like that back. Right. So I was like, hello. And so it's, hey, how are you? You know, what's going on? Can I help you with something? I was like, yeah, hey, I run this podcast, Deep Fried Thoughts, and this is what we kind of do. Oh, that's really cool. And it started talking to me about it. And they were like, do you have a question specifically about that, you know, that I can help you with? I was like, I have a few. So I start talking to it and it's giving me like really good information. I was like, shoot. I said, give me the top 25 most important things that somebody starting a podcast should know or do, whatever I put. And he gave me a list of 25 things. And I was reading them and I was like, these are a lot of things I had to learn on my own or, you know, through mistakes. I was like, these are actually 25 really good points. Right. So I said, can you give me 4 or 5 paragraphs or whatever? I forget. I had to keep doling it down. But I was like, can you give me like 2 or 3 paragraphs for each point? Right. About that point. And it gave them to me. And I slowly started building off of these 25 ideas and just copy and pasting into pages. And I was like, somebody could write a book like this. I literally, like in a half an hour, had a tutorial that I would have given a lot for to have in the beginning. And this is the full circle of what I was just talking about. Like, you could use AI and work off of it. So you could just do that. Like you could go in there. What's to stop me from selling it? There's nothing. There's nothing to stop you from selling it. But that's the human interaction part of it. I think that is a huge takeaway. A lot of people are going to get is they're going to utilize it, and you're asking the questions. You're asking the questions that it's giving you the answers to, and then you're curating the answers. So through personal experience, because you're like, these are paragraphs of things that I wish I knew when I was starting a podcast, and then bang, you're just like, here's Carmen's guide to starting a podcast, and it's like you curated that list, even though you got it from that. You could do that, and then that's like more from a moral standpoint. That's for you to ask, like, is this like morally right that I actually write this, or did I utilize this program? And you probably could put at the beginning of the book, I utilized this through ChatGPT, and it's just like the Beyonce thing. Like if they're not reading that front page and nobody's trying to sell your ass out,
it could be that, dude.
Here's the big difference in how I felt at the end. And you made a lot of good points there. If I was to put the effort into writing that myself without it, I would assume that I'd have a sense of fulfillment. Whereas I just looked at it and I was like, I didn't do this and I didn't feel part of it.
Totally.
Even though I did curate and like I pulled things that I liked and left things that I didn't.
Right, because they weren't your ideas.
It didn't work for it. It's kind of like anything. Like if I heard something recently where it said wealth lasts for 3 generations. There's the man that earned the wealth. Then there's the child who inherits it. And then there's the grandchild who never heard a word from the grandfather, and they're each one is further away from the work, and then the third generation is where it fails. Now, I don't know how true that is, but the idea behind it, I was like, that makes a lot of sense for anything. I always think like I want my, anybody with kids, will tell you like, I just want my kids to have a better life than I did.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why? They don't know why I want them to have these things or why I tell them no to these things, and it takes, the experience or the conversation with them, and the more removed they are from it, the quicker they are to go back and search for it, to find out. And it's just weird. I don't know. Anyway, but you got a new album coming out.
I do.
You sent me the link.
I did.
I got to tell you, I loved it.
Awesome.
I loved it. I listened to it. Well, first you sent me that one song. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
I listened to that, and we'll get back to that. I listened to the album all last night, and then I woke up this morning. It was like the first thing I did, and I've been listening to it like all day. My kids were dancing around to it in the living room, and it was just like on repeat. I genuinely love it, and I'm so excited to be able to like share stuff about it and all.
So cool. Thank you.
And if you guys are listening, it's out now. What's the title?
It's called "Enjoy Your Time in the Sun."
And where's that available?
It's everywhere. Anywhere streaming platforms are, you can hear it on anything.
Awesome.
It's going to be out, May 19th.
And you got great, yeah. And so this will be out. It'll be out by the time people are hearing this.
It's Ultra-Lite. That's the name of the band.
Ultra-Lite, and it's Lite, which I had to learn after putting the wrong one. Anyway, the music video was the first thing I saw. Okay, it was for Tears.
Yeah, Tears for Two. Yep.
Yeah, is that your first music video? Or that's first with the band.
That's the first music video with Ultra-Lite. Not my first music video, but the first music video with Ultra-Lite. And I actually had the pleasure of directing that. So
that's really awesome. I was just going to ask you the process.
That was right out of my head. Yeah, that whole music video. And it was to represent the trials that you have when you have like a mental tether to someone, like a relationship. So there's like the guy and the girl, and they're kind of like sitting in the room together, and it's like the white room of your mind. That's why it's like it's a total white room, and like even when you try to leave the white room, there's always something keeping you there, and that's why it's like the guy gets up and he runs to the wall and he can't get out. And and it goes to the next frame. It's like in the dark space. That's where you're like when you're in your dark spot of the room. You know what I mean? You know you're still in the white room, but you don't know how to get out. So everything just starts to go dark. And then when it gets to the red part is where it's like where your mind goes to free yourself, which is like for me it's that's an homage to with all the candy hearts is an homage to
I loved this.
It's American Nightmares Down to Our Underground. It's like one of my favorite albums. So
I'll have to check that out.
And that's how it was like broken up into 3 parts. So,
I liked it.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, it was great, dude. I was sending it out to everybody, and I'm not just saying it to blow smoke up your ass.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's funny, growing up, especially being around so many people in Philly in the music industry. I had so many friends that were starting bands, and it's like you go there to support them, and it's like I can only support them so far.
Totally get it.
And it's not even like I didn't think they were all great. It's like I'm just not into a lot of it. So it's always refreshing when somebody that I come to care about, especially you with instantly I had a connection with you when we started talking, which we will get into soon, and it makes me that much happier to enjoy something and know the work that's into it and to respect the person behind it, which again goes back to the personal aspect of it that is.
Yeah,
it's important.
It is important. It's funny because like Ultra-Lite, I've been playing music for a long time, man. Like since I was like 13 years old, and Ultra-Lite is just like my latest project. I started it during COVID. We were practicing with masks on in my drummer's basement, and like I was just really trying to make it work because my last band, we did a full U.S. tour and then broke up right when COVID happened, like because we just couldn't do it anymore.
That's crazy.
People got lives to live, man. We can't like keep trying to hold on to this, and like everybody had their own art they wanted to make, and like losing a whole year because of COVID where we couldn't even leave or do anything. People got things to do. So like the band kind of split up, and I was like, you know what, I got things to do too, and that's when I started Ultra-Lite. And that's just like the next chapter of the Dave Hurban music career for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it was a blessing in disguise because I'm like I said, I'm really digging it.
Thank you.
Can't stress enough how much I liked it.
Yeah. When I had wrote Tears for Two, I wrote the first part of the chorus years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I had sat with it for so long trying to find something that really worked, and I had hashed it out a bunch, and then I finally finished it. We had just thought about recording the Moldy EP, which is like our first little 3-song EP. And I was like, nah, man, I gotta take this song to a real studio. I can't be going to your friend's studio to record this. I gotta go to a real studio and put this one down. So Tears for Two is like the first song in the chamber for Enjoy Your Time in the Sun. And that's why I got the music video first, because it was like I'd been holding on to it for so long. I was like, this is the one that's really going to change, our sound and everything about the band. And that was it.
That's cool. Actually, that was one of the things I was going to ask. Like, because a lot of bands, they'll have, not every song is going to have a music video.
Yeah,
you
totally.
have those 1, maybe 2, 3 per album. Usually it's just like the one. But yeah, I was curious, like, what makes you choose that? But that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for me, it was because it was like the first one. It is also a very like, you heard the whole album now, so it is a very like single-y song. It stands out away from the rest of the record a little bit. But for me, it's like that was the song I want people to hear. So I'm gonna do the music video for that one and get it out first, and that's how it was done.
So what's that like? All right, so the singly, I don't know any other way to put that, but that makes sense. I think everybody listening can understand that. Do you, as an artist, go out to make a song like that, or are you just kind of whatever's in your head, putting it down, and then you say, "Hey, this one seems like a single"?
Yeah, it's whatever's in my head, and then it's like how music is like as an art form. So when you hear something that has, the chorus comes in very quickly, the chorus is very catchy, that's a single, and that's just the way it is. You're not writing the 6 or 7 minute drone ballad and you're like, this is the single. That's just not how it goes. Yeah. But if your band, that's all you write, you're going to pick the catchiest drone ballad of your, 4-hour album. And then you're going to be like, this is the single. So it really goes from band to band and sound to sound or artist to artist. But for us, Tears for Two is one of the catchiest songs on the record. So it's going to be the single,
Yeah. It's also like a single is often like an introduction to who you are as a band, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like,
totally.
You have the more upbeat and the slower parts and everything. And it's like that encompasses a lot of what was in the album too. Mm-hmm. So it is kind of like, you're kind of fishing out there like, hey, if you like this, we have more.
Yeah, that's absolutely what it is.
That's how it feels. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really into it. So the creative process of putting a whole album together, is this like everybody together? Is this like more one person writing music, one doing lyrics, or are you guys together or separate? How's that look?
So pretty much every song for Ultra-Lite starts with me with my acoustic guitar in my bedroom. That's how most of them start. I'll come up with, a line or here or there, and then I'll try to like write some guitar part to it. And then that's usually how the song starts. But recently, because the band started with me and Jeff. Jeff is the drummer, and we just played, my ideas, and we kind of hashed them out. And Jeff kind of just likes writing drums on top of guitar parts. He doesn't normally write drums, and then we're writing to him. That doesn't normally happen. But my process definitely starts where I'll come up with lyrics first, and then I'll write a vocal part to the lyrics, and then I'll write guitar part to the vocals that I just wrote, and that's usually how it goes. But when we got Joe's a lead guitarist in Ultra-Lite. When we got Joe, things definitely started to change with how the writing process went, because I would have a part, and then I would kind of ask Joe, hey, how would you play guitar to this? And then I would kind of change what I was doing based off of what he suggested, or if it already matched what I was doing, I didn't change anything. But that's kind of how it went. I'm primarily I'm the lyricist in the band, so I wrote all the lyrics on the record. But as far as like the parts go, it's definitely a group effort for sure. Like, cause we're all collectively putting together what we think the best part is, and then we're kind of picking it out of that. And that's just like Ultra-Lite speed. That doesn't go for every band, but that definitely goes for us. It's like all of us kind of come together and we're like, all right, we all have these parts. What are the best of the parts? Can anybody think of anything that's better than this? And then if we can't, we just take the best one and do it that way.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever perform, or were you ever in a band with any of these guys before?
No, I haven't.
Because you were in a long list.
Yeah.
When I was looking, I was like, I can't.
Yeah, I've played in a lot of bands. But yeah, I've never played in a band with any of these guys before. It's all new. I've been friends with Joe for 10 plus years. Joe, I would like go and show him stuff. Like when I was writing, I played in a band called Spirit Breaker, and I would show Joe stuff when I was like kind of doing that. It's like in 2015. I'd be like, "Hey, what do you think of this? Is this cool?" Because Joe's classically trained as a musician, so he's so much different than me. Where I'm like dirt as hell, barely writing bass parts, and I'm trying to figure out like, oh, does this sound right? And I can't really tell, and I'm asking him because he like actually knows how to write stuff professionally in that regard, as like a trained musician. So that's like his background for when he comes from. So that's how I know him. And then Jeff, I only knew through tattooing through Munter. He came, was just one of Munter's clients, and I know he played drums, and I asked him if he wanted to be in a band, and it was like in the COVID, so we have masks on. I'm like, do you want to do this? And like, could be cool. And then Ryan, my bassist, even though we're in the same circles, I never met him ever. Never met that guy ever. And he lives over in Pottstown, and like I didn't even, I'm never out in Pottstown ever, and that was it. So yeah, first time with all these dudes.
That's cool. So we talked about you being in a lot of different bands in the past, and doing this since you said like around 13.
I was 13, yeah, straight up.
How does this differ? This album or Ultra-Lite?
Ultra-Lite is just so different because it's like the first time that I wanted to write listenable music. And you can really tell when you're listening.
Interesting thing to say. Yeah. Okay.
You can straight up tell because like when you listen to it, you're like, man, I could just put this on and cruise. I can just listen. Yeah. And like that's like my goal, dude. Straight up. Like when I first started Ultra-Lite, I told all my friends, and like I have a lot of friends that like think of me as like an out there artist when I write stuff. Like because I write music and they're like, this is a little out there, man. And like with Ultra-Lite, I was like, this is gonna be the first time I really dig my heels on and want to make listenable music. And like there was so many parts that I wrote, and I was like, this just doesn't fit what I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to make music that you can put on and listen to. And that was it. That's the difference between Ultra-Lite and every other project I've ever been in.
That's cool. And do you feel fulfilled with that? Like the way it's turning out, is this kind of what you had in mind, or has it changed a lot?
Yeah, no, it's straight up like the vision of Ultra-Lite and being a listenable band and creating a new sound that doesn't exist is like really happening in front of my eyes. And like you can hear it on the record because you're like trying to put your finger on it. You're like, this kind of sounds like, I don't really know what this sounds like.
When my wife and you passed my wife's test too. She's very picky.
Oh, that's tough.
So when you first sent me Tears, I mean, I wasn't even going to share it. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll check it out. I popped it on. I was like, Jen. And that's my wife's name, Jennifer. I was like, Jen, you got to hear this. I was like, this is amazing. So we played it, and we were like trying to figure out why we liked it so much. And like there was something about it. And I said, you know what? I said, this sounds like when I'm looking for a band that reminds me of the nostalgic stuff from high school. And then I find them, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And then a few minutes in, I'm like, man, they're really trying to sound like the nostalgic band from high school.
Totally.
And I was like, this just sounds like it just felt natural. Everything about it felt natural, and like just it fell into place. And I was like, as much as this reminds me of this nostalgic stuff, it's its own thing. It's very different. Anyway, again, I'm trying not to blow smoke.
No, dude, I appreciate it because that's like that's how I felt, man. Like straight up, like we were writing the material, and I was like, dude, it's so crazy because Jawbreaker is one of my favorite bands. And if you listen to Jawbreaker and listen to Ultra-Lite, you're like, yo, this guy's like kind of jocking Jawbreaker a little bit. But like, I just got that sound by being myself. And like, that's what Blake does in Jawbreaker. He's just himself. Like he's him with his fucking guitar, and he's playing that shit in his bedroom. And then he's going to the band and being like, yo, what do you think this sounds like? And then that's what I did. And like, I got that same real feel across, but I got to do it while it's not hurting your ears, which is awesome. What I wanted. That's it's awesome.
So I got to ask you as well, to tell you a little background why I'm going to ask you. So like, all right, I work a trade. I work with like wells, which being in the city, you might not realize this. And I didn't, cause I'm, being from South Philly, people have well water and probably more people than not, or maybe not because of the amount of people in cities, but it's insane. So, anyway, I do that for a living, and we have a new guy, so I usually work alone. But lately I've had, a tag along, whether it's the new guy or somebody else, because everybody's kind of shifting around. And I didn't realize how much I love being in control and how much I hate not being in control until I had somebody else like going into my toolbox. And like now it's an ongoing joke that Carmen likes his screwdrivers to face north. Oh, no. So I'm like, no, listen, they have to face Mecca. Is like what I've been telling. Because often I'm working in the pitch black or I'm in a hole and I'm reaching up and I need to know where every single tool is.
Absolutely.
To make me feel comfortable so I'm not like having to climb out of this hole that I just Winnie the Pooh'd myself through because I'm not a little guy going in these holes.
No.
I'd rather just reach up and find it. And that's just how I am, and I'm very particular. And I know if a tool's missing and I left it at a job because there's a hole or a gap. Anyway, I didn't realize how much I was like this until you work with somebody else and you start seeing who you are. But having to work with somebody else, it's like, I really like this new guy that I'm working with a lot. But sometimes it's like a little stressful and I get like this agitated feeling towards him and I have to tell myself, that's just you.
Right.
Just eat it, suck it up. You know, you like this guy, this and that. And I'm curious if for you, when you're writing this music, I don't know what kind of personality you have as far as like the control, but it sounds like, you know, when you're a lot of give and take when you're working with the other members of the band, is that ever a struggle to have a vision of something and then have to share it and know that when it comes out of the other end, it might be a little different? How's that feel, and how do you work through that?
So for me, I don't think I have a control issue when it comes to the music per se. I do when it comes to the lyrics because I need it to mean something. Like I'm a big like this song's got to have meaning, and if it doesn't have meaning for me, I'm not doing it. It's not what I'm doing, you know. And that people write music and it has no meaning. It's just a song, you know what I mean? They treat it like a tattoo or something. Like, oh, this is, you know, it's just art. It has no meaning. Like whatever meaning you give it to it, that's the meaning. But for me, it's like I'm writing it. It has to have meaning. It has to have feeling. And in Ultra-Lite, those guys trust me that I'm writing meaningful shit. And because of that trust, we can write some of the best shit I've ever wrote in my life because they're trusting me to be at the helm and writing shit that fucking matters and is meaningful. And so when they're coming to the table with stuff they want to change, I know that they're coming there with, you know, the best possible thing that they think is right for the band. And I love that. You know what I mean? And it's that trust that's got me to this part to even talk to you that I have an album. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about that straight up.
That's actually a great answer. Yeah. So I guess everybody kind of has that. It's not just you. Yeah. Because, you know, I'm not in a band, and for most of us just watching bands, it's just like it's the front man and everybody else. And then, you know, it's obviously it's not like that, but it has that feeling. Yeah. So you don't often see behind the scenes like where everybody's working together. Yeah.
In every band, I imagine there's always a guy who cares more than everyone else, and he doesn't even have to be the singer. You know, it could be the drummer, and he, you know, wrote all the lyrics, and he's just having the singer sing them, and that's how it goes. And you know, but for me with Ultra-Lite, you know, my good friend Rob Rich told me a long time ago. He said, you know, you got to be the one playing the guitar, and you got to be the one singing. And he said that shit to me, and because I used to play bass, and that was like I originally played bass, and he was like, you got to be the one playing the guitar, you got to be setting the pace for the rest of the band, and you got to be the one singing. And I'm like, all right, man, I'll do that. And then that kind of changed my perspective on, because in other bands, you know, I took a sideline for a lot of stuff. I let other people, you know, be the front guy, and I have like a very, you know, forward personality, but I'm cool with just like being, you know, the bass player and singing the parts that you need me to sing. And yeah, I'll help write the lyrics and I'll help write it and give the song meaning. But for a long time, you know, I sat on the side for a lot of stuff and wasn't the front man and wasn't like the figurehead of the band or the helm driver, you know. And yeah, it changed with Ultra-Lite for sure.
Nice. How do you like that?
I think it's cool. It is stressful at times because I think that, especially from a creative standpoint, a lot of people, like, they don't get it when I'll just be like, I just want it to be this way or something. They'll be like, well, why do you want it to be that way? And I'm like, I don't have an answer for you. You know, I'm just doing it this way or whatever. And when stuff's like a little bit more serious, like when we had to figure out like where we were going to record the record at and stuff, like everyone's kind of like looking at you in the band like, okay, well, how do you want to do it? You know, and they'll definitely make suggestions, but it'll like come down to like, all right, it's your project, it's your thing, it's your baby, it's how you want to do it, you know, which was a little, you know, you got to take it on, you know, because it's like you are that helm, you know, and you are the face of the band, and that's just the way it is. So I'm cool with it.
It reminds me almost of a marriage.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. We're not going to get into politics. I don't know. For me, like, I'm very like old school with marriage. I think like the man should be leading, and often people will hear that and they'll pull it out and be like, oh, well, I don't want to be in, you know, I don't have a man in control of everything. It's not like that. It's very much like what you just said, where it's like I'm at the helm, but every consideration is taken.
Right.
And my wife isn't under my thumb. She's chosen to submit to like a final decision, and she will voice her opinion if she doesn't agree, and sometimes we'll have some strife, and one of us will have to, make a compromise. And that's part of the beauty of a relationship in general. But it's interesting. It's kind of that's kind of like the feeling I got when you're describing that.
I mean, we straight up, we always joke, like, I think me and a bunch of my friends always joke that like being in a band is like dating 3 other people. That's like totally what it is. And like and with the record coming out, stuff, there's been high tension, and it's trying to make everything, cool, because we want everything we want the record to come out and work so bad and be like, we did this, and you want it to come out the right way, and people hear it the right way, and that's it. And it's stressful when you're getting up to the plate. But yeah, it is like dating. It's just like dating 3 other people. Totally.
Well, the reason I keep talking up, I'm like seriously hoping that people listening to this, like I'm even going to put something in the beginning and be like, stop the episode and go down this out, because I really do want people to enjoy it and take it for what it is. Anyway, do you have I know you talked about Tears. Mm-hmm. You said you wrote that a while ago, right?
Yep.
I don't know if that would be the answer to this, but is there any song in particular that stands out to you on the album that maybe more emotional, more meaningful, more...
Yeah, so... there's so many songs on this album that are emotional and meaningful. Man, there's so many. I would say the masterpiece song for me that took the longest to write was 49 Reasons to Stay, 51 to Leave. That song took me the longest to finish. So if you're like listening to this episode and you're like, I need to listen to one song off this record and kind of get this guy, how he feels about the record, that song took me the longest to write. So if you're going to listen to just one song, listen to that one, because it's 5 minutes long, so it's a big ask. But that song really, I took so long to finish that, because it was like, it was my masterpiece. Like I wanted it to be perfect, and it takes you through a bunch of my memories. It takes you through, dreams I had. It takes me through the present that I'm living right now. And like, that song is a lot to process in like one shot. But if you're going to listen to one song, I'd listen to that one, because that song is like my masterpiece of the record. It took me so long to write it.
That's cool. I'm going to have to go back and check that out.
Yeah,
again.
It's an awesome song for sure.
I still haven't learned all the song names, because like I said, it was just like on repeat on
totally.
my TV all day.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, the kids loved it, dancing around and all. But one song that really stood out to me, obviously, was Tune Day.
Tune Day, yeah.
And which is how we got connected. And,
absolutely.
It's funny, when you first reached out and said, hey, I forget exactly how you worded it, but like wanted to use a piece of the podcast episode, I thought maybe you were going to like use it and like sing it into lyrics. Mm-hmm. Dude, when you sent me the link and I played it, my wife looks over. I heard first I heard his voice, and then I just started breaking down crying.
Yeah.
And I looked over at Jen. I said, Jen, you got to stop. She's watching some silly show. I said, you got to pause this. So I put it on the TV, and dude, I just had myself a cry fest. Dude, it was not that I needed a warning. I just was not ready.
Right.
I wasn't ready for that, and it's hard to put it into words. I had shared it with somebody else who knew him in my family, and their first response was, it was my mom. Mm-hmm. And she said, it sounds great, honey, but there's no hope in it. And I thought for a second, and I put, this song is a moment, not a story.
Yeah.
And that is exactly how I felt when I listened to it.
Totally.
It wasn't trying to solve anything. It wasn't trying to go full circle. It was screaming.
Yeah.
It was screaming into a pillow is how I felt. And, dude, one of the other reasons I got so emotional about it was recently, and this might sound silly, but like years ago when my father passed, I had a voicemail with his voice on it, and it meant the world to me. And somehow through updating, I lost all my voicemails, and I got really emotional about it.
Yeah, I'm getting emotional for you right now.
It was him,
I know
just
what that
like,
means.
hey,
yeah.
you strapper, you asshole, and like just being my dad.
Right.
Very old school, South Philly Italian, and that like encompassed who he was to me in that little 15-second clip, and I lost it. And then recently, I was messing around with my phone, and I did something. I found out how much data was being taken up by my text messages. Mm-hmm. And I put something to like automatically delete, and I thought I was able to lock certain messages, and I often will go back to Ali's conversations with me, and I'll just read years of conversations, and like I'll even go to my Gmail from like back in my old Android day phones, and I'll just like go through the silly photos we were sending, and I just sometimes I just want to cry, and sometimes I just want to and laugh. It's just whatever I'm looking for, I could find it, and I go to look at something, and I realized the message wasn't there, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I typed in Ali, all gone. And this was probably a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
It was at a birthday party, and I wanted to just curl up and cry, dude, because I mean, it's been years now, and I mean, it's just something I have not been able to get over, as they say.
Totally.
But the reason I'm explaining all this and leading up to it is I felt like I lost him again. And when I had that song, even though it was like from the episode with him on there, it was like I had him in a whole new way. It was like a new memory of him and something and an emotion that I could listen to and feel. And dude, I must have listened to that like 30, 40 times.
Oh, man.
I mean, like I went to bed listening to it. It has been something that I've probably made more than what it is, but it's meant the world to me.
That's awesome.
To have that and just know the relationship you had with him and to express it in that way. I'm so excited for more people to hear it.
Thanks.
But
very
real.
Yeah, it's so real. I mean, I listened to, I had to listen to both episodes, I don't know, 2 times through to find like clips that I wanted to use. And I really wanted to immortalize his voice. And like, that's when I wanted to use it originally. And when I finally got the clips I was cool with and was going to use, I was going to put him in the middle of the song, like right where like the vocals cut out and it's just music. And Joel, my producer, he was like, hey man, this is kind of a wild idea, but I'm gonna put your friend's voice in the front of the song. And I was like, okay. And I was like, all right, let's just hear it. And then, he played it back to me and it was so powerful alone that like, I almost wanted it to not even have the song there. It's just his voice because it's so strong by itself. And then, it's my experience and I wrote that song because I love him and I miss my dear friend. And that's like it, man. Like it immortalizes his voice and who he is to me in like a minute and 30 seconds. And I get that forever. And I could share that with you, somebody that cares about him. And I'm sure there's people listening that have lost friends, over the same issues. And I hope that the song resonates with them the same way it resonates with us, so.
Absolutely. And it wasn't even just Ali that popped in my head. Like we've all lost people like that, especially, I don't know if it's just maybe the people I was hanging around with, but a lot of friends, lost to either drugs or taking their lives because of drugs or like some sort of sadness that they could not get through. I see that resonating with anybody who's lost anybody to any issue even resembling that. So again, seriously, thank you for doing that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for getting him in a room to record something because it's so funny that he went and did a podcast because it's so unlike him to do, Dude.
So he was one of my early guests. It's funny. He's actually, those 2 episodes are so wildly above everything else listening wise.
Right.
And I've just come to realize that people go there to hear his voice. And I just, it warms my heart to see those numbers.
Right.
Only on those 2 episodes that are constantly growing. And I'm just like, I'm glad somebody else is getting that because you can't find stuff like that from him or any kind of
you can't.
talking on videos or anything. And it's funny because, I was hanging around with him all the time and I'm talking about the episodes that I'm doing. And like, I was talking to him about, wanting to get this thing started. And one day I was hanging out with him and I was about to leave and head out of the city. And he goes, he's like, I forget how he worded it, but he's something like, I'd do it. And I was like, wait, are you sure? I was like, he's like, no, I mean, like, I'm not pushing. I'm not like, it was basically like, I was so confused or so thrown back that he would even want to. And I was trying to convince him like, hey, I would have loved to have you on. I didn't ask because I thought the answer would absolutely just be no.
Right.
And he's like, no, he's like, I didn't know why you didn't ask me. And I was like, well, I'm asking you now. I was like, do you want to come on? Anyway, I mean, he was joking with me and all, but, it was cool. That actually having him on those episodes reignited our relationship. After I had moved out of the city, there was only like 2 or 3 people I kept in touch with, and he was one of them. But it was hard to see him and all. But when he came out and we had that time, which is the experience I have with everybody here, because we were recording for hours.
Right.
And it's like no matter how long I've known somebody, the odds that I've had a conversation like that with them previous to the episode is slim to none.
Right.
And it's like this thing that gets locked in between the 2 people. Between me and any guest I've had on, even the ones I'm arguing with. Yeah. And I love that. And it brought a friend that I already loved and already cared about and had these, this relationship with, it brought us that much closer, which I really appreciate because especially with how things ended, before he passed, he was having a hard time. And it just seemed like there were so many people in his life at that time feeding positive, things into him and having this relationship and getting to know him, which I just think is a beautiful thing in general. So it's something I'm always appreciative of.
Yeah, I can only imagine, man, like straight up. And especially like being like having a memory that's like so, finite. I don't know. Like it's like so perfect because you guys like got to talk and be, heavy and emotional, and it's recorded. You know what I mean? Where he's like talking about real shit and real experience that he had, and like I listened to it all the way through, and it's just like, there were parts of it where it was heavy for me to listen. I'm like, that's my boy right there. You know what I mean? So it's heavy.
It was weird for me to go back because he passed before I released them. I was recording like handfuls of episodes and then doing them. And then I was like in the middle of working on his and talking with him about it, when I got the news. And it was like, I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life. And then having to listen to, 6 hours of his voice over the course of, 2 months. But like over and over and editing. And I heard like, dude, it was hard. I almost didn't release it because we argued.
Right.
And I didn't even want anybody to know that I even spoke to him in any way that wasn't like I love you and hugs, which is unrealistic. But it was hard. Like I was like, I wish I didn't say it. So I wish I just loved him. And it made me think like, not that I think I would do anything different because we were just expressing raw emotions, but it definitely made me think about the way you speak to anybody really. Right. And it definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things.
Heavy.
But anyway, it's hard for me to really like get my mind wrapped around a lot of stuff when we're talking about him, trying just not to cry.
Yeah, dude, I totally get it.
Yeah.
He was one of my closest friends, man, and like I was with him. Like when I sang that song, I was with him every day. We laughed and cried together about the things we cannot change. Like I can close my eyes right now, and I could see him sitting in my passenger seat. And I could see him telling me, yo, you got to turn this sad shit off, man. I could see him. I can see him right now saying that shit to me because, me and him because I'd be like, dude, I'm so cool with being sad, man. I'm comfortable with it. I was like, you're the one who's sad and ain't comfortable with it, man. I remember we'd be joking about it,
That's
so funny.
That's such a good point. I could hear him when you were saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. That shit's real as fuck, man. Like I must have saw him. I saw him right before because I went to Los Angeles to see my friend Matt. And then I got back, he passed. Like, so it was like, I saw him, I went to LA, I was back for a day, he passed away. It was like all in one shot. And like my final reactions with him were all one thing. And I don't want to get too heavy on you, but
let's bring it.
He had texted me the day that he died, and he texted me, you're going to be all right. And I woke up 8 a.m., texted him back, you first. I didn't even know he was gone. That's real for me.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I got a text that I love you, duder. We always called each other dude. Anyway, or he did. I knew what he's going through. You knew what he's going through.
Totally.
And so to see a text like that actually wasn't uncommon.
Right.
Because a lot of times he was just like, I always took that as he wanted to talk and he was down and thinking about things that he loved. And I was so blessed to even be on that thought process. So anytime I got a text like that, I kind of knew where he was at. And this was something I beat myself up about. I still do. But I had rushed home from work. It was like late, I was working a job after hours. And I had friends over here that I was trying to get home to. I invited them over, and I'm the only one not here. So I was like all stressed out about that. I saw his text. And looking back, man, I hate that I didn't respond right away. I saw it and forgot because I was so stressed out about getting home with everybody. And I'm having this beautiful night while somebody I love so dearly is having the worst moment of his entire life.
Right.
And I know that's not my fault.
Right.
But that's probably been the hardest thing to work through is that I didn't take the moment to call him. But I just didn't think it was that. And then the next morning, it was like several hours into my workday. And I was like, hey, man, I love you too. I'll call you after work or something. And then it was like an hour later, I get the phone call.
Right.
And someone was just like, hey, have you been on social media yet? I was like, no. He's like, I wanted to talk to you first. And I was in some lady's house, like on her front lawn, like crying on my face and her, on her front lawn. It was like the worst place to be. But, there's no good place to be.
Yeah.
But it was just, it was interesting. The same thing. It's like you see that and it's to send the text. I don't know. There's just so many weird emotions that go through. And for me, I wouldn't call myself religious, but I'm very into my Christian beliefs.
Right.
And one of the things I had to keep telling myself was that we were not meant to die. We were not created to die. We're not created to experience death. And this is not going to be okay. And it's not going to feel right. And there's no there's no alcohol that's going to get through this. There's no drugs. And, you had mentioned that you were straight edge, which sorry, I'm like offering you alcohol before this.
It's all good.
I'd wanted to ask you this is, what that's like going through something so heavy sober, because this was the first time I did it.
Yeah.
And I wanted so bad to go pick up every drug I know would make me feel better in a moment. And I called family.
Right.
And it was the hardest thing. And I wonder if it would have been easier with drugs or whatever. But anyway, I'm curious your thoughts on that, like going through that sober.
I've lived my whole life sober. I've never drank anything.
Okay,
I've never done drugs. I've been straight edge my whole life. And, when something heavy like that happens, like one of your closest friends dying, especially taking his own life, I straight up, dude, I laugh. Like, I'm like, it's like the pain is so great that's all you can do is laugh. Cause it's like so intense and so heavy and so real, and death is so permanent. That's it. I can just laugh. I remember, I showed up to Munter's house and I saw him, and he'd been the saddest I'd ever seen. His eyes are sunken in his head, and I can see, his soul is like fucking cowering behind his eyes. And I'm just straight laughing in his face because I can't believe our friend is fucking gone, and I love him so much. And I'm just standing there just fucking laughing. Like, I cannot believe this is really fucking happening right now. Cause, I don't hide from pain, and I take it in, and every thought that I have is my own, and I live with those thoughts, and that's it.
I think that looking back, that is a beautiful thing to have. Because any other pain I had that was too much in my adult life, I hid behind some sort of substance.
Totally.
And I feel like I did a disservice to myself in a lot of these things. I feel like that's why I have so much stuff just like pent up inside of me, and like the stress and the anger and the outlash, or outbursts that I it's not as much anymore. But like the things I had to work through was just like, oh yeah, I never dealt with anything.
Right.
Which is so many people in this world.
Yeah.
And
totally.
it's so normal. And like you're the odd man.
I'm the odd man.
You're the odd man not drinking and saying, I've never done this. My wife is the odd one too. She's the same way. And I'm just like, man, like what about me was so intrigued in just hiding from everything real. When I look at somebody like you that was able, like, was it a struggle for you, or did you have a bad example that made you go that way?
First, being straight edge?
Yeah.
It's
Especially
very,
from a young age.
Yeah, it's very weird for me specifically. When I was young, I experienced a lot of, my parents hated each other and they were married. And then I never really saw them drink, but then when my dad would be mad enough, I'd see him drink, and I'm like, fuck this, fuck you. I'm like mad. I'm super young. I can't even remember my age, how young I was. But I remember my dad smoking a cigar, and he was like, come over here, sit on my fucking lap. And I'm like, all right, dude. And I like come over, and he's smoking this fucking cigar, and he takes a big chief of it, and I see the cherry red as hell, and I just pick that shit up and smash it right on his arm, and he's fucking smacks me. He's all mad. And that moment in my mind is like when I first started like, oh, I don't want to smoke. Like that moment specifically, I'm not smoking no matter what. I'm like a young ass kid. That carried into when I was a teenager, like my friends are smoking cigarettes, they're smoking weed. I'm like, I'm not smoking. And then I remember my uncle passed away, and everyone lied to me. They told him like, oh, like he's just not coming today. I was like, it was on July 4th, and I'm like waiting out the window. It's so dramatic. I'm like sitting there like waiting at the window. I'm like, he's going to come. And he never shows up. And everybody's like, oh, he's definitely coming, he's just like missing it. He's just going to be late. And everybody's lying to me. Everyone knew that he had died. He had died of an overdose. He died in his sleep. And when I found that out, I was like, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to do anything, because I wanted, people had told me that his life was so hard that he turned to like drugs and alcohol to like curb his life and make his life easier. And that's like what happened, because his life was so hard. And like, at the time, I don't know anything about spirituality, but I did believe that there was some type of afterlife. And I was like, if I die and I see him, his name's Steven, if I see him, I'm going to fucking tell him that I lived my whole life without doing anything. And I wanted him to know that I did it because people said that you needed it, and I didn't. I fucking didn't. And I did it without it. And that's it. That's what's real for me. And it's kept me straight edge my whole life.
Shit. No, like that's dude, that's powerful.
Yeah, it's definitely powerful for me, but it's so weird because like straight edge, has a different meaning to a lot of people. And when I was in my 20s and even a teenager, I was so douchey with straight edge, man. Like straight up, like you can like, dude, I was like the worst. Like straight edge revenge is like a real thing. Like hating people for using and like you know, like imagine our friend dies, right? And you're like, you know, I gotta get high, man. I gotta go drink. You know, this is fucking me up. And I called you fucking weak. I'm like, you're fucking weak right now. You know, and I said that and I fucking meant it. That's fucking demeaning. And I would be that person when I was younger. And it took friends that did drugs, did hard drugs, got addicted, got clean. I have friends that use recreationally, and it took those people to show me that there's just another way to live life. You know what I mean? And get me off of my fucking high horse where I thought I don't necessarily think I'm better than people, but saying that, you know, calling someone weak or calling someone cowardice for like handling their shit a different way. And like even in straight edge, like some people, straight edge to them is like a different thing than what it is to me. Like some straight edge to other people could be like a brotherhood, and it's like, oh, we're straight edge, we're like living this life together, and that's not what straight edge is to me. My straight edge venture and journey is all my own, and it's like completely just for me. And all my other straight edge friends that could be listening to this, or like that are out there, and other straight edge people, like your straight edge thing is your own, and it is what it is to you. And that it took me. I mean, I'm 32 now. It like took me that long to really accept that that's what it is, man. Like, so yeah, like you could be using right now in front of me, and I'd be like, man, that's you, man. That's your life. You're doing it. But when in my 20s, I was a fucking jerk, man. Like,
I think a lot of us were. I certainly was. We all think we're right about everything.
Dude,
you know.
up.
Oh, it was so funny. It was something I was. Oh, now I'm going to sound douchey. It was something I wrote, but I can't remember exactly. But it was something like I was basically peering into myself as what you were just describing. But I was looking at like my things that I was like over the top on and pushing and thinking that I was right. And it was like, man, like we have this whole generation before us. The idea behind what I wrote was like this whole generation before us try so hard to like instill values into us. And it's like, well, why? We never ask why. It's like, well, because there's a reason behind, you know, everything that I teach my son is because I did it wrong.
Right.
And everything my father, like the things that he really tried to instill in me is because he really messed up and probably was not okay with those things and wanted me to do better in those areas.
Right.
And it's like we have all these people, and it's like I wish we could understand so much more, but that's part of life, you know?
Yeah, straight up.
But yeah, it's like we try so hard to be these individuals, and all we wind up doing is walking a path that's been walked a million times before.
Right, totally.
No matter how off the path it seems, someone else has been down there.
Yeah, totally.
And it kind of humbled me to realize like my individualism and me being unique and special. That was my like my moment where I realized, no, I'm not. Like, and that's okay.
Right.
Let me find something I like and just like it because I like it.
Totally.
And not have to need it be, you know, each X represents these things. It's like, this is me and this is who I am. And if me doesn't fit into the box that this is, then I'm going to break out of the box.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of like a second level of freedom you get around your 30s. Because, I mean, I don't know about for you. For me, it took pretty much into my 30s. I'm 35 now. My wife will tell me I'm something else later because I forget all the time. I think I'm 35. No, I am. But yeah, I don't know why it takes us so long to do that. And I wonder if it's always been like that or if it's part of our culture. But it seems like we take a long time to learn some of the most basic things. And it's like once you do, it's like, okay, wow, I'm in my 30s and now I understand more about life. I understand this, you know, 20-year-old version that I can't stand so many parts of. It's like, well, now I can start from here.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like, all it does is make me want to learn what's a better way to instill this into the next generation.
You probably just asked ChatGPT, probably tell you.
And then, can you reformat that into a small book?
Brutal.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, that's part of like growing and learning and I'm sure your music over the years has resembled all these things too.
Absolutely, dude. I mean, in my 20s, all my music is just like angsty and like unlistenable. Like I wrote some stuff, man, that's so out there. Like you listen to it now and you're just like, man, this shit is fucking out there, man. Like,
are we talking like experimental or like lyric wise?
It's like it's not that it's like it's not experimental. It's just like I'm trying. It sounds like I'm trying so hard to be different or sound different that I'm just like pigeonholing myself into being like weird on purpose. And I'm not intentionally doing that, but I wasn't like, I always viewed music as art. And I don't know what it was probably in high school. I decided that that's what music was to me. I'm like, this is all art. Like that's all that music is art and how I experience it and like how I view it. And I think like, you know, all of my 20s and I've been in some bands that like we wrote some really good stuff, but like, there's definitely the bulk of it is like pretty weird. Like you listen to it, you're like, I mean, I like this, or I could listen to it, but it's not listenable, you know? And that was like where I was like, you know, I got to make a change with this one, dude. I got to write some actual listenable music for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think the best way I could put it on how I've changed is that I've learned to just be very fluid with the things that I normally would put my foot in the sand and say, this is this way, this is that. I'm like, I'm ready for the things that I'm so grounded in to just be lifted up and washed away.
Totally.
It's happened so many times. It's like, you know, I always think back to this one kid when I was in grade school. And he was always so negative about everything. And it was like the world was out to get him.
Right.
And I think that the reason, well, I don't want to insult the guy, but one of the things I've noticed throughout my life is that that person is everywhere.
Right.
You know, and it's like there's two different ways. It's not like one person's going to have a worse life and this person's going to have a better life. It's kind of going to be a mix of everything. We're all going to have good times and bad times,
right,
generally speaking. And I think a lot of our ability to grow through things and grow is the way we look at it. And you can either think that the whole world's against you, or you can understand that life is always getting kicked down and getting back up.
Right.
And that's where you get stronger. And it sounds cliche, but it's like cliche things are cliche because they're so true,
right,
that for generation after generation, hundreds of years, they keep getting repeated. And it's sad that something that becomes cliche is almost not taken seriously, because those are some of the most important things that, you know, we wind up ignoring. But I forget what the quote was, but it was like, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. And that's something I've just kind of carried on. And even with losing Ali, it's like, well, you know, how is this going to shape me?
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
And it has shaped me in more ways than I thought, but it's like, I had to just let the process just go and react, you know, and be willing to change the way
completely
I'm going to see things and handle. But anyway, writing that song Tunde, though, going back to that.
He passed. I wrote those lyrics like that day.
Oh, that was that quick.
He passed. I sat down with feeling like I had just lost, you know, a piece of myself. Like one of my close. Oh, dude, I'm about to cry. One of my closest friends, and I just sat down and wrote that shit and was like, you know, this is how I feel. You know, I lost my friend to sadness, and I will miss him every day. That's like, that was it, dude. Like, I don't even know what to say about it. That was it. That's what I had to say, you know? And I've always, as long as I've been able to write, I've been able to sit down, and when I'm feeling something strongly, just sit there and just, you know, put it into words, in some type of words. And for that moment, for Tunde, that was it for me. You know, I just sat there and wrote it. And then writing the actual song Tunde, it was just like kind of just one hand washes the other. I wrote the lyrics already. Why can't I just write the song? And that was it. That simple.
I love that. I was telling my wife that's like, I'm going to be listening to that, I think, like every day until I feel
Until
better.
you feel better about it, yeah. I think like from when we recorded it, because we had like the demo version, I must have listened to the demo version probably 100 times, because I was like I felt like it was like, because it's something I did for my friend. Now he's probably rolling over in his grave because it's like a sad song. He's probably like, bro, where's the upbeat song at? Like, why you gotta write this sad ballad for me? But like for me, it's like the song I wrote for my friend, you know, about him and about how, you know, I'm now in a situation where, you know, I'm dealing with the grief of the loss of my friend, you know, and it's his life to do whatever he wants with, and that's, you know, his journey, and I'm just here. I'm lying in his wake, man. That's it for me, you know? So that's how I dealt with it. I wrote that song.
Yeah, one of the things he said too was one of the things I had to accept, which was that it was his journey, it was his life, it was his decision. Yeah. And I could be angry all I want. Yeah. But at the end, in order for me to still love him, I have to accept.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? But I hope anybody listening experiences this too, like, you know, something that I wish I did more was just reaching out in general. And I did reach out, and I know I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, no. I literally talk to him every day, bro. So straight up.
I know he had people reaching out and doing these things. Sometimes that's, you know, it's just a decision somebody makes.
Yeah, it was really hard, like, about Ali specifically, when he got his first surgery, I went to saw him in the hospital. It was in February. I was straight up the only person that went to the hospital and saw him. And like, I remember, I still have the name tag. It's on my bathroom mirror. I like took it off, and like the visitor one, I hung it up in my bathroom. It's still in my bathroom right now, all sunbeamed and everything. And I remember him being like, I didn't even tell people I'm here. And I was like, you didn't tell people you're here?
No,
I'm like, don't you want?
Shocked.
I'm like, don't you want? I'm like, don't you want visitors, dude? Like, don't you want people to be here and like be there for you? He's like, I don't want anyone here. I'm like, okay, man, cool. But he had told me to come. Like, he didn't tell me to come, but he told me where I was. Isn't that an invitation? Like, he literally
Absolutely.
he gave me his address, like the address of the hospital and the room he was in. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna show up because you're telling me where you are, so I'm just gonna go. But I remember he was so happy that I came, and he felt like, you know, that for that moment he felt like he wasn't alone. And I remember there were so many times before that where he'd be like, dude, no one fucking cares about this or care about that. I'm like, dude, I care. I'm here. I'm right here with you, dude. I totally get it.
It's hard to see that though when you're in that dark
when you're
place.
in that spot. Yeah, when you're in that spot for sure. And I think that's what I'm just getting at. It's like, it's so like people are everywhere, and like I was showing up almost daily. It felt like to be there for him and be around. And it's crazy how we were just kind of expressing like it's his journey, you know, and we're showing up when we can and doing what we can, and we're his good friends, and that's just it.
I think it's the best way to put it is just to show up.
Yeah, straight up. Anyone listening, show up for your friends, straight up.
Absolutely. You know, it's one of those things, you know, sometimes, and I know I'm not alone in this, I'll just say we as human beings is like, it's sometimes it's hard to have those deeper conversations. It's hard for guys too, you know. It's funny, Ali and I talked about toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And I used to be like, that is just bullshit across the board. And then I start looking, it's like, that's because I have a lot of this toxic stuff that like is ingrained in me, and I maybe don't take it to the degree that some do, but that doesn't mean it's not real. So I've had to look in a lot of that stuff, and just Ali was always one of those guys that I'd have these emotional conversations with. We'd have these deep, and he was never afraid to go there.
Well, that's because Ali's not afraid to get punched in the face. That's why he'll take it there because he doesn't care how strong you are, how well versed you are. He's ready for that. So if he feels like he's going to say something, even with a friend that's sour, that's going to get him struck, he doesn't care. He'll hit you back.
Dude, this is going to be so off subject, but one time when this was before Uric and Sons, we had another friend that had a garage like outside his house, and they were starting the motorcycle shop. This was before Uric, anyway. So this was a business. I forget what it was called at that time. But I was outside, and we were just hanging out there every day, just going and getting just garbage food, and then eating it and feeling tired and laying out and just whatever.
Classic.
Grabbing a 40 or a beer and just hanging out on the side of the sidewalk or, you know, whatever. And it was just like, it was one of those just freeing points of life, and riding our bicycles everywhere at the time, and motorcycles. And anyway, one day we were out there at the shop, and I was unloading a motorcycle off of my truck. Anyway, I had a strap that I dropped in the middle of the street, and wasn't a busy street. Well, a car starts coming, so I walk in the street, and I put my hand up, like, hold up, because I didn't want the guy to pop his tire. And I got this chunk of metal in the middle of the road. So I grabbed the strap, and I put it in the truck. I don't know how the guy took that as I wanted to fight him.
Oh, no.
But Ali is so not afraid. Like, it's just funny because it was me, and I had a little pocket knife on me because these guys pull over and they're yelling up the street. So Ali comes out. I think he had a giant wrench in his hand.
Classic.
And I had this knife, and this guy gets out of the vehicle, and it's got something behind him. And we don't know what it is. It could be a gun. And I remember looking at Ali, who was stepping, you know, each step ahead of me, and I was just like following the lead, like, all right, we're doing this. And he didn't ask me what happened, whatever. He was just there, and we were this team. But this guy pulls out a machete.
So crazy.
And Ali is standing there. I think it was him who said it. Was like, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to chop off some arms? Like, what the frig were you thinking when you got out of your car with a machete against like 4 grown-ass men?
Right.
And it was just one of those funny moments where it's like everybody realized that this isn't West Side Story.
Straight up.
We're not about to beat each other and chop each other up in the middle of the street because of a miscommunication.
Oh, man.
So everybody just kind of walked away.
Right.
It's one of those things I look back and I laugh often. But yeah, seeing that guy whip out a machete from behind his back is You'd think it'd be scary, but it was so funny.
Yeah, it's not scary, dude. You're just like, dude, what are you gonna do, man?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think in that story too, it's something to be said about Ali. Like Ali's so quick to be the first one. Like he'll get in front of you, and like it could be your problem. He's like, nah, this is my problem now.
It was funny because as soon as they left, he looked over and he's like, "Man, what are you doing that shit for in front of my business?" And he like got on me for a little bit, but I was like, "Wow, you didn't even care what the situation was. You had my back."
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we deal with the situation. I told him, he's like, "Man, those guys are idiots."
Yeah, that's our boy,
I told
dude.
him what
That's
happened.
straight up him, man.
Yeah.
Straight up, that's him. He's got you. You know what I mean? He always got me. So, and I totally know that if he's doing it for me, he's doing it for his other friends too.
Absolutely.
So that's just the type of man that he was, straight up.
Yeah, it's funny. We met him through I think like through bicycles or whatever.
Yeah, he used to ride. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you actually, you know what? I think because my friends moved out before me into South Philly, and we were living on 6th and South. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Ali that called us the Bad Hair Club because we all had these like bowl cuts or whatever, like emo haircuts. Mm-hmm. So I think he spray painted BHC on the front of the brick.
No shot.
Somebody did, but he came up with BHC anyway. So we were like the BHC, and dude, those were some of the best years. It's like work didn't matter. It was just like, when am I clocking out to go hang out with my friends? It was like before anything got serious.
Yeah.
You know, before you take yourself too serious in your life.
Totally.
But those were some wonderful years. But it's interesting. Ali, you know, I not to keep making this about him, but I mean, cool. You know, when people hear the song, I just want them to know a little bit more about him.
Yeah, straight up.
And you can go back and listen to the episodes too if you're listening. Yeah, like him with drugs and me and my issues, and talking about, you know, not being afraid to have those conversations. This was another thing I think that people should be more like, you know, Ali in this way. Is I remember I was trying to get off drugs, and like just, dude, all my money I would get was going right into cocaine. Like sold my motorcycle for cocaine, and like, it was just stupid, and just whatever drugs, and like I was just like obsessed with like this girl, that girl, and drugs.
Right.
And like that was life. I don't know who I thought I was, but I remember one time I go into the bathroom at this house party with Ali, and he never would touch anything at this point. Like he was like, absolutely not. And I disappear into the bathroom with these two girls. And you'd think he would wait and come out like and be like, "Hey man, like I know what you were doing in there. Like I'm not about this. I'm going to leave," or something. No, busted in, gripped me up in front of all these people that he didn't know and I knew, and throws me up against the wall. And he's like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing? Are you out of your mind? Like I know what you're doing in there, man. I fucking love you. I care about you." And it was just like I was high,
right,
and sobered up like that
instantly.
And it was like I knew at that moment, like, man, this man like actually cares.
Right, totally.
Because nobody does stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, like we're all afraid to have these interactions that aren't comfortable.
Right.
And I think we need a little bit more of that. We're so afraid of offending each other and these things. It's not like I'm saying seek out to offend.
Right.
But, you know, don't let a fear of a confrontation stop you from, you know, telling a friend that you're not down with what he's doing.
Right.
Or that you're worried about them.
Yeah.
And things like that. But, yeah. So that to me was probably the most emotional song though on the album, obviously. Yeah. But as far as the other songs, I know you've talked a little bit about the writing process and wanting everything to be genuine and real, but is it always brought from your own personal life, or do you ever just see things that are going on? Like the world's crazy right now. No matter where you stand politically or culturally, the world looks like it's falling apart.
Yeah.
Do you pull any inspiration from the world, or is it just more personal for you?
I think for Enjoy, everything on there is a little bit more personal.
For which song?
For Enjoy, the album itself.
Okay.
Everything on there is pretty personal. I primarily write from experience and stuff that's happened to me and how I'm just reacting to that. Everything on this record specifically is about that, but I have wrote songs about things that have happened. I wrote a crazy 9/11 song that's like in things that have happened to me, but using like things that happened in 9/11 to word them, like, and use them as like they're like the calling cards for each thing that I'm trying to say. So I have done things that way, or like wrote a song about something that had happened and it just pertaining to that or how it made me feel. But primarily on everything Enjoy Your Time in the Sun is just about, you know, my own life experience and writing about that. Yeah.
So being that a lot of it is like personal, and all, has it ever gotten you in any trouble?
Yeah,
because
totally.
I could see myself as not even spitefully putting something in there, but just like expressing something that is personal. Like even this, like sometimes I get myself in trouble with my wife because it's like, she's like, why did you talk about that? I'm like, I can't stop myself from going down a path when I'm in front of somebody. It's like, I'm not purposely trying to hurt you or this person. But I definitely have put my foot in my mouth a few times, but it's like, I feel better letting it out.
Right. Totally. With music, that's definitely, there's definitely been times where, I have wrote something about my personal experience and it got back to somebody and they're like, is this about you or whatever? And it's definitely not been great, but that's just kind of the way it is, right? Because it's like, oh, well, that's the thing that I'm writing about. So sorry.
So you're not going to hold back, I guess, to something like that. Yeah, I'd imagine that'd be hard. You know, like not fully letting go of something. Like when you were singing Tune Day, it was like raw emotions.
Yeah,
you could tell it was like personal, even like in tears.
Yeah,
it was like every song on there, I could hear it, I could feel it, and that adds to like what we were talking about earlier with that authenticity. I think that's probably the thing I look for most in bands.
Right.
Going back to ChatGPT.
Right.
I was when I was goofing around with it, my wife couldn't care less about any of this. I'm like,
right.
You have no idea. Like the invention of the wheel, it was bullshit. This is it. This is our
No.
And that's like, I get on these like crazy rants and I have to like calm myself down and go, all right, like, cause I get in this like weird panic mode about it sometimes. And so she's just learned to just be like, I just don't care. It's just whatever. But I was like going on and on. I was like, Jen, do you understand? Like I just put my poetry in and asked it what it thought, and it knew some of the cryptic like writing references that I made that were about this, but I worded it like that, and it actually said, "Hey, I like the way you reference this, meaning this." And I was like, "Wait a minute!" Like, so I'm getting freaked out a little bit over there, and then I was like, "All right, well, what else can I do for this?" And I was like, "I'm gonna find new music."
Right.
So I was like, hey, like, talking about being a sucker for sad music. I don't know how you feel about Bright Eyes, but
I love Bright
Connor
Eyes.
is like, that is like my soulmate.
Right. It's making sense why you like the Ultra-Lite. Why you like the Ultra-Lite record. If you love Bright Eyes, you're going to like Ultra-Lite.
That's like all I listen to. I just can't get over it. It's like every song. They just did a companion album for all their albums.
Right.
And I've been getting the records like coming in the mail. Like every couple of weeks a new one has come in because I ordered them all a bunch. And anyway, do you know what I'm talking about? But
I don't think so. What Bright Eyes is doing specifically.
So they're redoing all of their albums, recorded again, but different music. So it's like the style of music that they went for is completely flipped.
That's insane.
It's like they rewrote every album.
Wow, that's crazy.
But the lyrics are the same, but it's sung differently. It was funny, like my record player. You could change the speeds for the different sizes. It was so different that one of the companion albums I listened to it on the wrong speed. Oh. And I didn't realize until it was over so quick. And I was like, oh, like it wasn't meant to be that different. I had to go back. I felt like such an idiot.
Me and my buddy Dalton just did that with records. He spins records all the time. It's like all he does. Yeah. And we sat in a spot and we were just listening to records at 33 and then at 45. And it didn't matter the size. So we were like speeding it up or slowing it down and like listening to it, like listen to a 45 slow down or listen to a traditional sped up. And we're like, man, this shit sounds so much better like sped up, or this sounds so much better slowed down. And like we're like taking notes of like how we should be listening to it and like putting it on the jacket to like make sure that when next time we listen to it, it's that way. Yeah, it's so dope.
It's funny, actually, I just realized it was another vinyl that came in the mail that I put on, and I was like, I know this album. This doesn't sound like this. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the last few Bright Eyes albums I listened to were in the wrong speed.
Oh no.
But it's cool because now I get to listen to them again. But I remember thinking because I had, listened to them as they're coming in the mail for months now. They keep showing up. I remember thinking, all right, like I want to like this, but it's a little different. It's a little weird, a little bit much. But anyway, I haven't gone back and listened. This was like just yesterday.
Totally.
But anyway, going back to ChatGPT and that. So like, love sad music. I love a good cry. Right. I love to like remind myself of everything sad. Some people love to be happy all the time.
Some people like to be sad all the time.
I just feel comfortable. Like the more sad that Connor gets, the more I feel like I'm not alone. It's I think really like boils down to. And I'm a very emotional person. Like I cry more than most men and like whatever else. It's like I was so embarrassed of it as a kid, and now I'm just like, what am I going to do? Like hiding that has only caused me more problems.
Right.
So anyway, I said, hey, I really like this, and I said, I really like Right Away Great Captain. Have you heard them?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was like, I really like these two bands. I said, what bands would you recommend to me? And it took me probably like 10 minutes to find a band I hadn't heard of, but every band that it kept coming up with, and I was like, another one, give me another one, were like my favorite bands of all time. And I'm like, wow, this didn't just listen to the sound or not listen to the sound. I thought what it was going to do is kind of like how when you're looking on whatever Spotify or Apple where it's like suggested albums, I thought it was just going to give me suggested albums.
Right.
And so I went on and I'm looking and like Spotify and like, hey, bands like this on Google. And it wasn't popping up with ChatGPT's answer. So I was like, what is it looking at to know that those two bands are going to lead it to me liking Tallest Man on Earth?
Right.
It's like that is such a different type of music. And it wasn't just spouting out. It like chose like 5 or 6 bands to tell me.
Right.
And so I've been trying to think over the last few days, like, what was it about those that I liked? Anyway, I found, was it Mountain Goats or something?
Yeah.
It was like, that was
Mountain
the only
Goats
one that
cool.
I haven't heard of. And so I've been really enjoying that lately and learning.
Record,
and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like anyway, it was just weird to have a robot or whatever that thing curate my song or music. Man. So maybe I need to find it, tell it to make me like a perfect like list, like make a what's it called, playlist now.
Playlist for you, yeah. I mean, that's what I feel like. That's what Spotify does. They got to have some AI going, but they just use their algorithm to tell you what you'd like on that. Straight up.
I don't use Spotify for anything, but podcasts sometimes. Well, mostly Rogan, or when people send me music.
Oh, okay. Are you like an Apple Music person?
Yeah, just dude, I am trapped in the Apple world.
Okay, yeah.
Like
I love Spotify over about Apple Music just because I feel like Spotify is like. It's just way more comfortable for the artist, but that's just for me. Like, I love looking at a band's like Spotify profile and like checking out like what songs they got, like what playlists they have listed. Like that stuff is dope. Like,
they can put playlists up.
Yeah, you can. You're full as the artist. You have full control over what you have up on your Spotify page.
That's weird. Maybe Apple has some other stuff. If you're listening, I mean, I don't really know. I don't. It's just it doesn't feel. Very intuitive to branch out from this is my albums,
right?
This is my playlist, and this is the artists I have.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like exploring and finding new things, it seems very close knit.
Yeah.
And I keep hearing what you're saying about Spotify.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But
Spotify just talked about wanting to go like social network. They like want to be a social network, like
that's
coming
weird.
up, which is crazy because like if they do it the right way, I mean, you're old enough to know. Remember MySpace Music? You remember that?
Oh yeah.
MySpace Music was the greatest, dude. Like I saw some of my favorite acts that I've like loved that crashed and burned post MySpace era, but like. That was like really real, like all that music that was coming out at that time and like people getting connections that way. Like, and if Spotify landed in that realm, where it's like bringing people together in that way and giving artists meaning and stuff the way that MySpace Music did back when I was in high school, then yeah, dude, go for it. I'm so down for Spotify to do that. So
when you say social, are you talking about like definitely like heavy music social, right? Or are they looking to maybe branch out?
I have no idea what they like. From the thing that I read about it, it said that like Spotify was looking to make it so that way when you're like listening to music, you would have your own profile of like, this is the music I listen to. And like people could communicate to you about the music you listen to.
That was my first thought I would love to see what certain people listen to. Like I have friends that are always finding great bands.
Right.
And it would be so much easier to be like, all right, what's he actually listening to?
Right. And they straight up have it already that the user, like if you have it enabled, people can see what you're listening to right now. Like if you are a Spotify user, you can have that enabled and people, as you listen to Spotify songs, people can see that. But like, there's no like set profile to like show like, oh, this person has listened to Drake this week 70 times. Like there's nothing like that, but I think that that's the direction I think that they're going. It's like this person's favorite bands are this, and like it's a profile that you look at that is all of their favorite stuff.
Yeah. For me, like the best part about that is discovery.
Totally.
Because there's
how could it not be?
Yeah, right? It's like it's just discovering new things. I'm curious of your thoughts on this because right now, it seems like we're entering into, or maybe we're already there, this time where social media or Instagram specifically is like, I think like the number one desired job for kids now is to be a YouTuber.
Ugh.
And that just kind of
that's so brutal.
It says so much more about the whole idea, and it's like it's like the new ball player. It's like the new basketball player. It's like,
Right.
do you understand like this tiny little bit gets to make it?
Right.
But then there's like that line. It's like, you don't go and just crush dreams.
Right.
It's like, how do you inspire in a different direction?
Right.
That's kind of my thought towards it. But that's the world we live in. It's like everybody wants to be like, it's like all about your brand and like, what are you selling? How are you, your business of you?
Yeah, the selling is so brutal.
And it's like, we all kind of feel like led in that direction. Like, you're promoting a band, I'm promoting a podcast. It's like, I have to be part of that cog to a degree, but I don't want to be trapped in it. I don't want that to resemble life when I'm not on there.
Right.
I don't want it to make me feel good or bad if somebody listens to an episode or not. So a lot of times I'll try not to look at that stuff, but I get curious like everybody, and it does feel good if something that you did is loved, right?
Totally.
So it's like this weird trap, but I guess what I'm getting down to is, for music specifically, do you ever listen to Joe Rogan?
I've listened to a couple of his episodes. Like, I listened to the Travis Barker one when I was coming back from Ohio recently.
So he'll often tell people like, hey, there's this weird thing amongst comedians where like, or there was for a while, where everybody thought there's not enough for all of us to have a piece of the cake, right? So it's like you hated on everybody that wasn't you because you thought there was like this finite amount of success that was available and you wanted it, and it was a competition. It's like step on everybody. He's like, that's not the way it is. He's like, there is a lot, and that's the thing for
Billions
a lot of
people
things
in the world.
There is enough. You got one group of people that are saying there's not enough resources and we have too many people, and then you have other people like Elon Musk saying, no, we are so far from reaching the maximum on the resources. It's like, no, we're just not making those resources available to people. And it's like, it's like different ways to look at it. And this is a very long drawn out way of trying to show you like what is in my mind is I'm watching these young artists, and it's like everybody is trying to make it as like the big singer. Everybody wants to be Beyonce and Post Malone and Travis Barker. Everybody wants to be this, and it's like nobody wants to be just them, and have like a more niche group, that really like. Sometimes I get in the trap of like, how can I grow the podcast? And it's like, well, then I'm going to grow it into things that I don't like, and I'm going to be working towards things I don't like, and having to sing a song for you like that you don't like. So what's the balance between, I'm trying to think of like the way to word this, with trying to like make a commercially successful or positive song versus something personal and like you?
Yeah, that's listenable. That's the difference for me. Okay. When I made something listenable, that was the difference. It's because I'm making it so you can listen to it and listen to it 40 times and not listen to it twice and being like, oh yeah, I like that band. Like, one of my favorite bands ever is Norma Jean. And specifically the Bless the Martyr record. Mm-hmm. That's my favorite record. It's like in my top 5, never going to get off that top 5. That changed heavy music forever when that record came out. And when I listen to that record, I put it on, I listen to it once, twice, and I turn it off, and I don't listen to it again for a while. That's me right now, and I'm being real. That's not listenable music. You know what I mean? Mm. But like, you put on the Blink-182 self-titled, I listen to that for a week if I want to listen to it. You know what I mean? And that's the difference. And that was for me is like, okay, I can still write music that is meaningful, but it could just be listenable and be different. And that's the change, I think, for how you're saying how you want to make the podcast and make it still you. And it's like, you can be you, but the making it a listenable podcast, and that's like vocalizing your opinion and like kind of leaning into that and like not making it super obscure or having obscure guests on purpose and stuff like that, and like making it that's if you want it to be listenable or watchable or whatever, that's on you to do. But that was a difference for me. It's like, and I can tell the difference. Like, I know the difference between Norma Jean and Blink-182. Like, I know the difference between those two things, and I love them both equally, and I think they have shaped me into who I am as a person, and that music has done that to me. But for me as an artist, and I'm writing my own stuff, I can now tell the difference, where before I felt like I couldn't.
I think anybody who's heard those 2 albums, you would know what a perfect example that was. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah. Now to add on top of that, you have what I was just talking about, where everybody's like fighting to the very top. Do you feel that from, you've been doing this for a long time.
Right. So what's the very top though? What's the very top? Right? Is it at that monetary value? Like, because you said like Post Malone. Like, Post Malone, landed in success by accident. He didn't mean to do that. He just landed in success. And like, he is definitely geared for success. Like, he's very talented. He knows like 100 cover songs on immediately. You can ask him and he'll know. He'll just happen to know, like a jukebox, then and just play it for you. He's an amazing artist. And like, he's not like, he is marketable, you know, and because he's marketable, he makes money. So is that successful, or is it like, I'm trying to think of another artist, or like Bright Eyes. Granted, Bright Eyes is pretty, you know, successful, but is it a monetary value of success? Is it how you're impacting your audience? Because you could say that like, you know, Bayside, right? Like Bayside's fans are super culty, but like Post Malone's fans aren't culty. Like, so what is like the difference now? Like, do you want, like, what's your measurement of success, you know? And like, I think that question for you, or asking me, is that's what it is like how you want to be successful in this. And like, saying that the youth, they all want to be YouTubers. It's like, okay, well, they all want to be YouTubers. Are they saying that they want to put food on their table and be a YouTuber? Because you could probably definitely do that in today's, like, you know, today's society. You could probably definitely do that, but your food on your table might be ramen. Now, if you have a fucking roof over your head, that's a whole another question you got to ask yourself. And like, it depends on where you are. Like, here in America, we can make a lot of shit work with nothing. You know what I mean? I lived in my car for a long time before I even made enough money as a body piercer, which is what I make my living off of right now to support my fucking music career. Like, I lived in my fucking car for a while, like trying to make it fucking work and trying to make shit happen. So I think it's like really measuring success as what you think it is, you know? And if it's a monetary value, I'm sure you could find a way to make it work, you know, but I'm not measuring success that way, because like I just said, you know, Blink's one of the biggest fucking bands on earth, ever has been. Norma Jean is not, but Norma Jean has had crazier and better shows than Blink probably ever will, you know, for sure. Definitely. But like, that's a measurement of success. Like, you get to decide like what that is, you know, like, oh, I think that this band is successful in this way or that way. But if you're going to put a monetary thing on it, it's like someone else made it monetary, especially with Post Malone. I don't think Post Malone for a second was like, yeah, man, like he did White Iverson and was like, that was it. I'm going to be fucking rich. Like, he didn't give a fuck about that. He was just like, I'm cool as fuck. He put White Iverson out. I was like, I'm the coolest dude on the planet. That was it. That's all he was thinking, you know? So
he was in my eyes after that song came out too. No, that's a great answer. I feel the same way. Like, it's very personal, but do you feel like the competition being more aggressive, or are you just kind of, that's not your horizon?
That's not me at all. With Ultra-Lite, I'm writing new music. You know, I always label the band as new alt, because we're like new alternative rock, and like, you're either with new alt and making your own sound, or like you're just still making music and making sounds. And like, I don't think it's really a competition at all for me. It's like just trying to make music that's listenable and people can get behind and like has meaning. You know what I mean? Like, I know, like, no one's heard Tunde yet. They're going to after this podcast is, but I know that song is going to ring true with a lot of people, especially people that lost people. That's what I want. I want to know that, I want people out there to know that I felt the way that they do about losing their friend. You know what I mean? And like, I want to put their feelings into words, and I can do that with that song. And like, people are going to hear that, and that's what's going to happen with that, you know? And there's other songs on the record that are going to do that. And with other songs that I'm going to write, that's going to do that. And that's like that's my plan for sure. And like, if at some point people think that they can put a monetary price on my band and make us make money for them or whatever, fuck it. Like, sure, I'll do the Nirvana approach where you can like get in those big studios the way that, you know, fucking Kurt Cobain knew he could get into those big studios, and like, I'll do that part of it. But for me, it's like, I want to write listenable music that is impactful and speak to people in a way that I can't do otherwise. You know, I'm only good at one thing, and that's putting fucking words on paper and making you fucking feel.
That's great. And I think that brings us back to what we were talking about earlier, which is, you know, when you said about how do you measure success? For me, it's fulfillment.
Yeah, totally.
And it goes back to what I was saying with AI. I hate to bring it back, is that I wonder what it's going to be like. Like, I'm sure a lot of people, they reach what they were seeking after and they don't get fulfilled in the same way as they thought they would.
Yeah.
But you have to learn to enjoy, you know, the path and the travel to that end game, and learn that it's about everything. It's about every day, every moment. It's not just the end goal. And I worry for humanity and for artists and for all of us, no matter what you're doing, that fulfillment won't be had once everything you just described is no longer needed. Yeah. Like, what's going to be it's just so tempting. It's literally like a carrot in front of you. Like, to to just click a button, to just download an app, to just pay like a little fee, to have something just that much easier. And it's like, we're going to have to, I think we're going to have to find the balance of, like, everybody's idea of success is going to change.
Right.
And it's going to, I hope, bring us back to where we do seek fulfillment.
Right.
And that's the one thing that stops AI from completely eliminating the human interaction, is that we'll get sick and tired of not being fulfilled by these things, these great things that we are doing, or that AI is doing. And I have hope that the passion that you just had in those last few questions, and I was not trying to egg you down anything.
No, that's cool.
I wanted to hear that passion out of you, because I sense that about every answer you've been giving me and everything we've been talking about, is that you are truly passionate about this. It isn't, it's like we work to support what we care about, right?
Absolutely.
It's not, sometimes I think at work people think like I love doing what I'm doing, and I have to remind them, hey, listen, I tolerate what I'm doing, and I'm not upset with what I'm doing. But the whole reason I'm doing this is to support what I want to do.
What I want to do, totally.
Which is be a dad and have a podcast once a month.
Right, totally.
It's like, that's the fulfillment that I'm seeking.
Totally.
A dad, a husband, and the podcast.
Yeah, and like, it's so weird because I really love piercing. Shout out Troy Temple. I love piercing. I'm really good at it, and it's carried me so far in my life. And I respect the trade, and I respect that I have a moment with people constantly. Mm-hmm. And because a lot of people, I'm their first piercing. Like, I'm giving them their first ear piercing, and that's an experience they're going to remember forever. They're going to remember my face forever when I give them that. And like, I really respect that. And with music, that's like something that I crave, but I crave that feeling of like, I was there for that person, you know what I mean? And like, I am not alone in this world. Like you're saying, like how you feel about Bright Eyes, like he's making you sad. Like that's the same thing I'm writing music for. It's like someone out there feels just like I do, like Tom DeLonge said, like someone out there feels just like me. There is. And like, that's what I'm writing for, I'm writing for that moment. And it's like, I get like a small crumb of that with piercing because I am this experience where somebody is changing how they look, they're changing their appearance, and I'm helping them achieve how they see themselves, which is really awesome. And I'm glad that I get that with piercing. But with music as an artist, I just get that so much more. Like it's so much more there that I really love. And that, so I can totally respect what you're saying. But I definitely I love piercing too, as like, I get to be that. I get a little bit of that, I get to be part of the experience, which is amazing.
Nice. You mentioned Troy.
Yeah, Troy Temple.
Do you work with Troy?
Troy is my boss, technically.
Oh, yeah. I've known Troy for a long time.
Yeah.
Traveled with him to the conventions and at the compound. And does he still have that?
He still got it.
That place was awesome, man.
It's still awesome.
Good times there.
Yeah, it's still awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I randomly, the last time I got tattooed by him, I randomly showed up to WMMR. He was doing Tattoos Day.
So dope.
And it was funny because like I put in my my application, my name on, to get selected, and they called me the next day. And it said like years. It was like a 5 to 6 year waiting list.
Right.
And they called me the next day and they're like, hey, we just had a cancellation. Like, any chance you can make it? And I'm like, well, I have work tomorrow. I was like, you know what? Scratch that. Yes.
So dope. And it was Troy.
And it was Troy. I showed up and we did, we had a blast. So it was cool
awesome
to like be able to be on the radio with him and then hang out with him in between. I was like, this could have been better. He did, was it slice of pizza and ranch dressing with like a banner that says I didn't invent it.
That's so good.
It was just something goofy from the show.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't seen him in a long time. I hope he's doing well.
He's doing great, man. I love that guy, dude.
He
he's
is such
so good.
like a creative type, and I just love
creative.
watching what he's doing.
Yeah.
And you can tell just by the way he dresses. I'm just like, this man is literally on his own level, doing his own thing, and he's happy to be doing it.
Yeah, man. It's so amazing. Like he's done so much for the tattoo industry. Like just being near him is like it's so much energy, dude. Just being around him. Like I feel like a planet orbiting a sun when I'm near that guy. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like I'm so thankful that I even know him. But to like I'm in a part of his world in some regard, because I've been kicking with him for a minute. And it's just so amazing. Like to have somebody like that directly in your life, that's
absolutely.
just like, because I've always loved tattooing, even before I was like really into industry as a piercer, and like I always loved it, always respected the trade, and then like when I finally got in it, I like learned even more about it, and then like, he's always been so wide-eyed and loved it, and like loved Eddie, and like he's just done so much like in the last 20 years for tattooing that like, you know, you or I probably couldn't even dream of, you know, doing, where you're like really changing an industry forever. You know what I mean? And like he's like made so many significant changes to it, and like how stuff happens. Like you almost can't even go back now because it's just too good now. Why would you want to go back? So it's amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned Eddie. So like with Eddie and him being so close, it's like, you know, losing Eddie was a huge blow to the tattoo community.
Absolutely.
And I feel like Troy,
rest in peace.
Not that he is taking the place, but he has taken that torch of like the amount of influence that Eddie had.
Absolutely.
It's like, it was like there was not, you know, there wasn't a gap.
Never skipped a beat.
Never skipped a beat. And I mean, that shop has been through a lot. You know, the people going through there, it's been so much. And to watch him just continue to just chug along and have the success he has been great.
Dude, that guy never skips a beat, man.
That's cool. I didn't think we'd have that connection there with Troy.
Right there.
That's cool. So how long you been piercing for?
I've been pierced for 14 years.
Oh, nice.
It's insane. Yeah, I started when I was 17 and then got grandfathered in when I turned 18 and got my license.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy, dude. I was like in high school. I was going to high school, doing my apprenticeship and working overnights at CVS. And I was doing them all at the same time. So I was really sleeping in school because I had no time to sleep because I was like doing overnight. So I would like finish my overnight shift to be like 4 a.m. I go home, get to sleep for like 3 hours, and then I have to get up and go to school. Be in school fucking sucked. And then I go to my apprenticeship was like from 2 to like 10 o'clock. And then I had my overnight shift at like 11.
Yeah, it's torture. It's a lot.
Crazy.
But I mean, if it's something you're passionate about, right? We forget about those things.
I just like when I got my piercing apprenticeship, it was like the first time that I felt like I had like some big responsibility before. And like I was 17. So I was just like, man, I'm just going to do this, man. I'm going to all in it. And like, I was working at like, it was like a pretty like street shop. So like everything was like, you know, it was like classic 90s by the book, like everything was. And like, I was like, I'm just not going to let these guys down. I'm just going to keep doing it. So it's really funny. Like looking back on it now.
I actually met most of those guys, not just from being tattooed, but when I lived in Philly for the first time, we lived on 6th and South. We lived on South Street. So we were like right in the mecca of like all the bars, all the tattoo shops, and like, and got to meet everybody there. I'm drawing a blank on his last name, but he's a tattoo artist in the area. I forget what shop he works for there. Maybe it was Nokoi. But his Tony, big guy, Tony Barris, or drawing a blank. Well, anyway, I didn't know anything about the culture. We were a bunch of like little punks living in this dirty house, and it's like, I'm getting a message. Anyway, I thought, hold on, let me just silence that before something else comes through. Sorry. No, anyway, I didn't know that it was like you don't tattoo in a house. Like, right. I don't know. So we got like a tattoo machine off of, you know, wherever on the internet or bought it from somebody. And we had this feud between one of the shops there. I'm not going to say which one, but Tony was working there at the time. And we would have like, you know, you got people walking down South Street all the time, and, you know, you got these people paying tons of money to have, you know, a storefront with all this traffic. And here we are with our door open, and you could just hear the machine buzzing. And we're just tattooing in the living room on a dirty couch that we trash picked from somebody up the street.
So bad.
Oh, God, dude. But we had a war going between us and Tony.
Right.
And
I can imagine,
I'm so glad it didn't go to where me and him ended up making friends. And I'll get to that.
So it didn't go where he's breaking your hands?
Well, it got to the point where, like, all right, one day I come out for work, and I worked at Sprint. So, like, I would have to dress nice, like dress pants and a dress shirt, and I'd head off to work. So I had dress shoes. Well, for a couple mornings, I would come outside, and there would be a pile of honey. Why is there honey at my doorstep? I'd step outside, and my shoes would get stuck to the sidewalk.
No way.
It's like, what the frig is going on here? It turns out the honey bandit was Tony. And he was just doing all these little things to like get at us, and then we were getting at him, and like it got to the point where a baseball bat was pulled out, and like there was this big fight, and then it wound up subsiding. And it was so funny because years later, I'm drinking at a party, and I have no idea whose house I'm in. And it's, you know, I was still living at 6th and South, and all of a sudden Tony walks in, and I'm like, I'm going to get killed. Like this is not okay. He's a big guy. And I'm thinking he's gonna crush me. Right. He had no idea who he was or who I was. We started having some beers and loosening up, and I just had it in me to say, hey, remember those guys that you had this big feud with? That was me. But luckily we wound up just being able to like laugh about it and like say like, hey man, I had no idea this stuff was going on. But it was funny because he was doing so much more to torture us that I didn't know. And it was like, oh, you were the guy who did that. Oh, you stole the mirror off my motorcycle. And you did.
No.
But it was something we could laugh about. But it's just so funny. Like, there's so much in like the tattoo culture that you just don't just things you don't think about as a kid. Like,
Right.
I didn't realize I was hurting their pocket. And they thought we were running a tattoo shop. We were just tattooing each other and being goofy, and like, you know,
Right.
half my thighs are, you know, things that I just never want anybody to see.
Totally.
Like, I think one is a UFO sucking up food out of a dumpster.
Oh no.
And it's like, it just says like poop on the side of the dumpster. Just like goofy, silly, dirty things. But anyway, it's just funny, like growing and learning. And then, you know, once we had that chance to laugh over it, it's
Right.
like, you know, it's just interesting. Like, we could have beat each other with a baseball bat
Straight
and whatever else was involved, I won't mention, and we could have been in jail.
Right.
And instead, like, we were able to like laugh about it and look back. And I think a lot of life is like that, you know.
Right.
It's so much we want to like jump into the emotional part, and it's
Right.
like sometimes you just got to sit back and listen to somebody that you hate.
Yeah.
Just hear what he has to say.
It's so funny that you say that, because it's like, you think about, some people really like the permanence, you know what I mean? They like the final, like, this is my fucking final time. Some people love that in life, dude, straight up.
I might like it a little bit in the moment, but I
Right.
hate it afterwards.
Yeah, straight up.
Was this the final I really wanted? No.
Yeah.
But it's just funny how life is like that. And then got to know all those guys, and it's like, this could have went so different. And they ended up being some of the most just incredible people I've ever got to meet, and just like creative. And it's
Right.
like, man, I was just, anyway, just a mess as a
Right.
kid. But yeah, one of the things he wanted to do, and this was like right before the battle, I'll say,
Right.
like the big fight that happened, is he was going to get like the tattoo ink powder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he did. Like, he poured it into our air conditioner, so if we turned it on, it would have shot in, but it wasn't working
no.
or something. It's so funny. It's so petty on both ends.
Right.
But it's goofy. But I did want to be a piercer at the time.
Oh, wow.
And that was like what I dreamed of being.
Oh,
When I
no
was
way,
in
really?
high school, I was like all about it. So I was always like piercing people and like doing it all the wrong way. It was just
Right,
like, you
totally.
know, like even when I was out in college, I was like doing, you know, septums and
Oh,
things.
man,
And yeah,
crazy.
and I had all the right stuff.
Right.
But one time I had a buddy. Do you know Vinny Sulak by any chance?
I think I know of him.
He
Yeah.
just seems to know a lot of people. Anyway, I think it was him that got me a piercing kit. And he's like, I don't know if he wants me telling this. Sorry, Vin. He gets me a piercing kit, and I paid like whatever for it, way under what it should have been.
Right.
It was like this fully stocked, like tackle box looking thing. And it turns out that somebody, I think, stole it from the piercer for the pagans.
Oh, man.
And now here it is sitting in my house.
Oh,
and it doesn't
God.
take long to find out where something went just by
Right.
asking a couple questions when
Right.
you're dressed like that with the jacket. Anyway, thank God I wasn't there, because I probably would have ran my mouth
Right.
and not knowing who they were at that point. But they showed up, and Vinny was there, and he just goes, "Oh, here you go. We don't need anything for it. Like, we're sorry, and it's good." But man, that almost turned out a lot worse.
That's not like it could have been bad, dude. Totally.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But it's funny because that was like where I was like trying to become a piercer. And for whatever reason, I guess I wasn't really that passionate about it, because I let it go at that point. And it's
Right.
just so funny. If that never happened, I wonder, like, would I be
Probably piercing right now.
Probably would have been piercing right
Yeah,
now.
straight up.
But I don't know if I would have told everybody where I started from, though, doing it in bathrooms and whatever.
Yeah,
else.
I don't know. When I first started, I wasn't really like piercing people for money. I had pierced a couple friends that asked me to, but I was like the guy that was like okay with blood. Like, I was okay to like stab someone, like, and they just knew me that I was that, and they knew that I pierced my lips, and they would ask me like, "Hey, you think you could like pierce my nose?" Or like, "Hey, can you pierce my ear?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'll do it for you." And that was like that's how I you know, even knew that I liked piercing, or could do it, rather. Not even that I liked it, just that I could do it.
Did you enjoy, like, or do you enjoy getting pierced?
I don't know if I enjoy getting pierced. I've done all my piercings myself, so I've never been like, all right, I'm gonna sit in this chair and let somebody pierce me now. But piercings come such a far way since when I've like pierced myself. Like, the last piercing I gave myself was I did my smiley in 2017, and you know, it was nothing to me. I just did it and didn't even think about it. But piercings come so far. Like, needles are crazy sharp now than like when I started. I felt like,
I didn't even think about that.
dude. Like, when I started, like, needles were like, I felt like they were sharp, and then like they started doing like some crazy like laser cut shit with like tri-bevel shit and like the like 2013, 2014, and shit started to like really change. And now I feel like I have needles so sharp I don't even have to think about it. I could just like barely touch the thing and it goes right through it.
It's
straight
weird.
up.
So when I was doing it, I know like you could push through the skin obviously, but I was able to feel the layers of the skin that you're
Straight
going
up
through.
you
Do
can,
you still
yeah.
feel that
Absolutely.
with these, or
Yeah.
does it slide through? Okay.
Nah, I mean, I can still feel it, but I'm probably so conditioned to it because I just do it every day. But yeah, I feel like the gloves really help with that feeling sensation because there's so much tension on your fingers that when you actually do a piercing, the skin resonates through the needle to your fingers, and because you're wearing that glove, you can really feel it. Like at least I can. Because I pierce it like all finesse. Like I just use the bevel for everything. I never like press it. I'm like I'm power piercing this. Like I'm gonna put a bunch of weight into it. I never do that. It's like always at the bevel and like making sure I have the right technique, and that's it for that. But yeah, I can still feel it totally.
Yeah, I think I probably got into it from Steve-O.
Oh,
When I was
wow.
a kid, because he would often just stick things through his cheeks.
He did, yeah. That was like
and
his gimmick, yeah.
So like I would do that. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I was such a weird kid. Man. I'd be like the kid in the back of math class that wasn't talking to anybody, had no friends, and I had like something dirty that was sharp, and I'm like sticking it through my cheek. And
wow.
like it was weird, but like I got a release from it. Like some
Wow.
people talk about tattooing as being like a pleasure. I don't get that from tattooing.
Right.
I want it to end the second it starts, especially as I get older.
Yeah, straight up.
But yeah, it was like weird to me, like for piercing. And then like I went on this journey of like I just wanted to get some more extreme piercings. So like I went out and got, I don't know how to pronounce it. It was like the Apodravia.
Yeah.
So like I did that. That was really intense.
You got an Apodravia done.
Yeah,
Hectic.
that was intense.
For those at home, it goes through the urethra. That's what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
from top, it goes
from top to bottom.
right over. Yeah, right from the
Yeah.
top out the bottom, and that was intense. And then I was like, I didn't realize like how deep you can go into certain things. Like I don't know how weird you want to get here, but it was like a princess wand and like sounding and like all these crazy things that like I didn't know what it was. Like it wasn't sexual
Well,
to me. It was
genital
just like,
piercings are that's a whole separate thing, dude. You're piercing a fucking organ. That's a whole separate thing, dude.
For me, it was just like pushing the body. Like I definitely was heading down towards like the body modification route for a while, and I'm glad I stepped back. Not that I have anything against it, but I'm definitely not somebody that at that time had much control over things. I definitely pushed things too far, but it's just wild, like what we have done as people and as human beings. Like I had to travel somewhere up in North Jersey to get somebody to do my mandible, and that was like an intense one back in the day.
Mandible's fucking intense. I still don't even know how to do that.
So everybody told me it was like, they were like, no, that's a surgical procedure. We won't do it.
Yeah.
And I found some guy in North Jersey and did it. And I wound up having to take it out because before I would get sick, it would start getting inflamed.
Yeah.
And I would feel it because I guess, what's that? Your lymph nodes.
Yeah,
It is your lymph nodes would swell up, but I would feel it in the bottom of my, or in the piercing.
Like you have a
before.
barbell there.
Yeah, dude, that was weird. But it was
That's
just
some that's some hectic shit. I have never learned how to do that ever.
No, I mean, I wouldn't expect. I mean, how many people are going to come asking for that anyway?
I don't know. It's got to be like that. Your uvula, that shit's heavy mod. Like even though it's just like intense piercings, like you're still making it be like a big change. You know.
I think one of the things I liked, and I'm not, again, it wasn't a sexual thing for me. It was like, I guess it was kind of like the same way, and I'm not promoting this, please don't take it that way, but like of cutting for a release. Like a lot of the shit I dealt with as a kid, it was like I didn't have my own voice and nobody was speaking up for me to stop things that were happening to me out of my control as a kid, which is probably why I got control issues now. But there was something about getting pierced that was like this release for me, or this relief, and like, anytime I changed my body, it was like what you had talked about earlier, how you're like, your music gives somebody like something to resonate with, and you can control emotions through that. Or not control, but guide. You're like a guide to an emotion that you're feeling in every song you write.
Up.
And I feel like in the piercing, the correlation you made is the same thing. It's like, even if it's just changing my appearance to help me feel better about myself, because a lot of times it's like, you look at somebody and you're like, man, you're beautiful the way you are. But if that person doesn't believe it, sometimes that modification is something that's going to bring them to that place.
And that's what I was talking about earlier is like, dude, that's that part I respect about piercing is like, I am that person for them that's helping them change and get more in their image. And that's the part of it that I really love and I really respect about piercing. And like, I'm happy that I get to be there and be that person for them because I know that I'm going to give them the best service that I can, so.
That's cool. Yeah, I was surprised at how open people were to like want to help me with things. Like, I mean, they knew what I was about, like, and what I was going through, and like even doing private sessions with certain things like that were a little bit more intense. And it was like it was just such a community of acceptance, and it's with my beliefs and my politics, a lot of times those words are like triggering for people, and they're like, oh, well, they're going to ruin the country and this. And I get some of those feelings. But at the same time, I feel like I was blessed to be on so many different, like I was a chameleon, man. I went through so many different groups of life that it's hard for me to flat out judge anything.
Right.
Because like I had friends that were trans. They won't talk to me now. They, a lot of them I think things that I don't.
Right.
And it's like I just kind of let it be. But it's like I had friends that were trans. I had friends that were gay, or still have friends that are gay, or people that were liberal, or people that are conservative. And it's like I've learned to love in every corner that I've traveled. And I guess there's not really a point to that other than like, no, there is somewhere. It's interesting how much we can other people and dismiss it.
Right.
And I just feel like I was so blessed. Specifically, I guess I'm going back to like for the piercing community was one of those like where I felt like the path I went was so off the beaten path.
Right. But there were other people there.
And it was like the acceptance I got, it was great. And I really needed that because I was very suicidal for years, and it was like I just needed somebody to show up a lot of times. Totally. And it was like, it was so weird to find that in my piercer. I was like, that's not what I would ever thought, like, and how personal it was. But it's not like I'm going to the store and buying a shirt. Like that's a very intimate thing with somebody. Even if it's some, a group of girls that come in and they want their ears pierced, it's like, it's still something that's changing them.
Totally, dude. And that's something I've always loved about the tattoo community and industry is like, we're like a bunch, most of us are that misfit person. Like most of us usually are. And that's what's so interesting about tattoo shops. Like you go in a tattoo shop and it's like a bunch of dysfunctional people being functional, like making it work. And
that's
like,
a great way to put it.
Yeah. Like it's really funny. And like, there's like, I don't know, a bunch of people that are really hard to work with in the industry, and they've worked with people and, people will be like, oh yeah, that guy's hard to work with, or this person's hard to work with. And like, we are all that, that's how we got here in the first place, at least I think for the most part, because a lot of people that are like heavily tattooed, there's definitely something to be said about like us looking for that in other things. And it ended up being tattooing and changing our appearance and like feeling like that was some control we got to have, and like, I always thought about that with like tattoos is like, did I originally get tattoos to like be like, I'm different? Like, am I making a statement? Or like, did I get tattoos to alienate myself even more to be like, no, I'm covered in tattoos, like stay away type deal. You know what I mean? And like, I never even really thought that it was like that until I was already had 2 sleeves. And then I was like, oh shit. Like I do want to look like this, but I didn't really think about like why I was looking like this. I just wanted to do it. I wanted to have tattoos. I knew I wanted to have tattoos the first time I even knew what a tattoo was. I think it had pinged me. I was like 15 years old. And I'm like, yo, fucking tattoos are kind of sick, dude. I think I want some tattoos, and like you start thinking about what you would want to get. And then I had a friend of mine, I hung out with like a really older crowd when I was younger. And I had a friend of mine who was like in his 20s and he was like, wait until you're 18 to get a tattoo. Do not get a tattoo before you're 18. You're going to fucking regret it. So then I like held on to that like for so long. And then I turned 18 and got my first tattoo and then was like, okay, cool. Now I can branch out. But even now, like I look back and like there's tattoos that I would change, but if I started getting tattooed now, it'd be so different.
Oh, I have the same
Yeah,
thought.
It would be so different. And
I'm
like,
so glad I waited or was forced to wait. I had to wait till I think I was, like 17. But it was the same thing. Like the amount of things I would have gotten. Yeah. I'm so glad I did not.
Yeah, so glad. Yeah, you think about that too. Like I think how much things had changed and how much they kind of stayed the same because at least for me when I was like a teenager, I thought some ideas of stuff that I liked and wanted to keep. And like one of those was like I wanted like a bouquet of flowers as a sleeve as one. And then like at some point I had thought like the whole bottom part would just be the stems. So I'm like, my whole forearm would be stems. And I'm like, when I like started to, isn't that so funny? Like, but then I started to like, when I started working in the industry, I'm like, dude, that's like a terrible idea. Like you should just put flowers there too, because you can. And I'm like, okay, I'll just put flowers there too, because I can. But yeah, like you change so much like when you're in the industry about like what you like about art and stuff like that, which was cool, which was really cool because if I wasn't a piercer, I probably would have held on to some of those bad like art suggestions and was so thick-headed back then. I'm still thick-headed, but then it was so much worse. So I probably would have gotten a lot worse tattoos if I wasn't in the industry. So
No, that's a good point, because like I have some that are very silly, and I'm like, I don't regret them. But like I have a pinup cheeseburger on the back of my calf, like in stilettos, and it's like it was such a weird looking thing. It doesn't fit well, but I was never in the industry myself. But I was very close with several artists, by 6th and South. I'd be hanging out at the shop all day, and
They can
wherever
guide
else,
you a
or
little bit.
where they'd be over the house afterwards. So it was such a steady conversation, and seeing people come into the shops, what they were getting, and I'm so grateful for that, because the art really didn't mean as much to me until that. I started seeing like, oh, there's a method to all this, right?
Right, totally.
It's not just like, oh, I just want like an infinity like here on my wrist. I'm not hating on anybody who does that, but like I knew from the beginning, like after my first one, like I want a lot.
Right.
I want to this is a path I want to go down.
Totally.
And I'm so glad that I had somebody like teaching me more of like the culture of it, and why, just why you do certain things. Like one thing that I never thought about was like, and this is, you could do whatever you want, but they were saying like, traditionally, the like at the bottom of your wrist, you wouldn't put a bird, and then above it put a tree. You would build the same way like that the world is, like the ocean to the land to the sky to space. And I don't know, people listening, you can agree or disagree with that, but when I see art that are like sleeves that were done and it looks like that, or it was more planned out, even if it's like traditional pieces, there is something like just that looks very natural to it. And I see when it's opposite, it doesn't look right. And I don't know if I'm losing you here.
I'm following you. Yeah, I'm following.
It's like,
I mean, there's definitely a lot of tropes, like especially with like, the face always has to face one way when it's on your arm, or like face the other way when it's on the other side of your arm. Like there's definitely tropes in tattooing that are like that.
Well, even like I want it to be upside down because it's for me.
Yeah, right? that's another one. Totally.
God, that I had somebody tell me that's not a good idea.
Right.
But it's just all those little things. And, I don't think I'd be upset if I did it the other way, but it just, it helps to know something about something you're diving into, especially when it's permanent.
Yeah, totally. And I still got some room in my legs, so there's still time. Yeah.
Nice. How do you feel about removal?
Removal's cool. I think like life is so long that if you don't really identify with those tattoos anymore, you can get rid of them if you want to and get new ones. People black shit out all the time. They get their whole arm blacked out and then, ran over with something else. And if they're doing that and are super accepted in the industry, you might as well be able to get stuff removed and tattoo over it again if you want to, or not tattoo it at all. Like you just want to get rid of it completely. That's
actually a good point, because I guess these are similar. I have a negative feeling towards it. And I don't know why, and that usually means I'm probably on the wrong side of the issue. And that's just something I got to figure out for myself. I'm like, why do I have such a negative thing towards this?
Right.
I still don't think I ever want to do it, even for like the cheeseburger one, or any of the other ones. I got one covered up, and
if you got to cover up, man, you're about to eat your words.
And that's
if you got to cover up,
that's the thing. Like you just made that connection, and I'm like, I guess that really is similar.
Yeah, it's so similar.
This is happening live. I'm changing my mind live.
For me, that's like, because that's kind of what it is. It's like tattoo is a permanence, right? It's this permanence that we put art on our body that it can mean something or not mean something. For me, a lot of my tattoos mean something in some capacity. But I have some ones that don't mean anything, and they're just like jokey tattoos, or I got them because they're cool art, and that's totally fine too. But it could be moments in time too. Like I remember getting the back of my neck tattooed, and that tattoo, has meaning to me that I give it. But it was a moment in time when I got it. It was when I was living at my third apartment, and I remember getting it, and I remember who was around and all the people. And I remember that because of the, when you like hold something that's like a trinket from that time, tattoos do that for you. You can look down at that tattoo and remember like exactly why you, like what was happening when you got that tattoo. You'll remember all of that. And that's what tattoos are good for. But like, if for whatever reason, if you are identifying that tattoo with the time and space that you don't agree with anymore, you can get rid of it. Why not? Like you can do that with everything else. Like if you're keeping anything in this basement down here and there's something that you don't want to relive anymore and you're done with it, you just throw it away. That's how memories work, And something can bring you back to that point, but you made the effort to get rid of it. But tattoos definitely do that to people. They'll spike them into a spot and keep them there forever. Like whatever you got covered up, that's probably a memory that you don't want to think about anymore, and that's a wrap.
For mine, it was the wrong Like, it was the wrong Bible verse.
Oh, no.
So it wasn't anything like
Right,
that.
so
But that actually makes a lot of sense, because I'm thinking when you were saying that, there is something,
No, you're
that
right.
reminds me of something I don't like. And I just kind of, for me, it was like, well, that happened to you, and live it, make the negative be a part of you. You know, how can you grow from that? And, you know, like you said, it's for us growing up, it was a permanence. There was no other alternative.
Yeah.
And I think that is just kind of rocking my thought process of it, up to where people are just like, oh, I'll just get it removed later. And it's like, no, like, this is permanent. And I hear like that old man, like, get off my lawn guy in my head when I think like that. And it's like, I'm battling myself. I don't want to become that old man, but I see the old man's point.
Right.
But is the point worth reaching that?
Yeah, and this is so weirdly, it ties back to like being straight edge, where I have straight edge friends, and straight edge means whatever to them, and it means something else to me. It's the same thing with tattoos, right? Like, I have a bunch of tattoos, and I know people with a bunch of tattoos, and they mean different things to each other, and like, that's for me to decide and for you to decide. And I think it's the same thing with removal, you know, like, if they get it and they ain't really with it anymore, they can get rid of it if they want to. It's their life, their skin. They can do whatever they want with it.
I think that's really what it boils down to.
Totally.
Is like respecting, and even with Ali, like, no matter how much you disagree with a situation or a decision, in the end, you have to respect that person.
Straight up, dude.
Right? And I guess if I'm going to say that about Ali, because that's the most extreme situation that I've had to take that stance, I mean, what is it to remove a tattoo?
Yeah.
Look at that. It's like therapy, man.
That's really funny.
No, that's interesting. I guess I've never vocalized that with anybody else. It's just something I just like, I'll see the removal, and I'm just like, I'll snark, you know, at it, or give it a snarky look.
Yeah.
And it's just like this weird bitter thing I have. But yeah, often when you don't know why, it's like, you know, why is this here in the first place? You know, like the Berlin Wall. You know, it took a couple generations to say, what is this? Why is this here? And rip it down.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder what Berlin walls we have, you know, that we've built in our generation that the next will tear down.
Tear it down, yeah.
And how are we going to feel?
Probably the 2-party system, probably that.
You know, that I'll let go on. I'll take that down with you.
I think they'll take it down for
or
sure.
The fake 2-party system.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think that in whatever it is now, they'll definitely tear it down. The younger generations for sure.
It's weird, like times, and again, I'm feeling more comfortable talking with people that are, even if we're on wildly different spectrums. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that as I'm getting older and looking at things a little bit more distanced, it just all seems like a lot of BS. Like, there are those issues that, like, hey man, I got to respect that you won't move on that, and you got to respect I'm not going to move on this. But it's like, that's not the day in, day out things that affect us. It's like all of us are crushed under taxes and the cost of things and inflation and everything going on around the world that isn't involving. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of these things, but I'm feeling it every time I pump my gas. I'm feeling it every time I pay for something. Yeah. It's like, man, I don't know what the boiling point is, but I hope that when we reach it, we don't look at each other as a 2-party system. We look at each other as, hey man, like, how can we all help each other up? Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to get to that, or it's going to get to everyone's dying.
That's freaking terrifying.
It's going to get to either one of those. We're going to get to one of those extremes for sure.
I saw, I don't know where I saw this or heard it, but somebody's telling a story about a fisherman, and he's like, yeah, I was watching this guy fish, and he had, he's crabbing, or fishing. Anyway, for whatever reason, this guy had a bucket of crabs behind him, and one of them was like fighting its way out. And he's like, I yelled out to the guy, like, hey man, like, one of your crabs is getting out. And he said the guy didn't even turn around. He said, just keep watching. And he said he looked down and watched, and as soon as the crab was about to pull itself out of the bucket and escape, another crab grabbed it by the leg and pulled it back down to help itself out.
Wow.
And I was like, man, what a powerful image of us.
Right.
You know, I don't ever want to be that one that's pulling somebody down to step up.
Right.
And it's like, you know, when we're all being pulled down, how can we build a ladder?
Right. To get out.
You know, I mean, like, you look at ants and it's like they will use their own bodies to like create a ladder.
Straight
and
up.
Like, it's just so weird. You know, we're animals, right? Mm-hmm. We're a species of animal, and it's like interesting to find similarities or how we're different, how we can be better human beings by looking at something as simple as an ant.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just so weird because, like, when anytime I talk about this and, like, trying to get stuff better, it's like I always have to look at it that we're Americans, right? Because we're like, so different than most of the rest of the world. And we, like, live in a society that is so different than the rest of the world, you know? And, like, our, like, whole lives, you know, you and I are kind of almost the same age. I've been, like, completely involves capitalism in a very weird way, where we're in like some classist society that you and I don't want to really be a part of, but we're talking about doing things that we love versus like finding love in the work that we do, because that's what makes us money. Is like, dude, it's weird to think about. Like, and I've lived a super privileged life, like been able to find things that I love and make money off them like almost immediately, like out of high school. And like I've been living on my own since I was 15, and like finding a way that worked for me to like get shit to work. And I mean, I'm really blessed that happened for me, but like, capitalism came for us, you know what I mean? And like in a way that we didn't get to choose that. And like, that's because we're fucking Americans, but we're not, we weren't born third world country. Like, when are we going to get our next meal type shit? So it's like, anytime I think about shit like that, I'm like, man, it's like, so like my problems are not something else that, I could think about. But when we think about trying to get us out of it or whatever, I mean, the younger generations will be like, yo, this shit's a problem. We got to fix it. And like, I have mad faith in the youth that they're going to make shit better. Cause why couldn't it be? We'll be old by the time that shit changes, but it'll be either be getting better and be awesome and getting better, or it's going to be chaos and, terror.
That's the fear for me, is like, often we'll see a problem, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the rational way to go about it is say, all right, well, this is how it's been going down, but the end result is not really where we want it to be. And I feel much more comfortable with somebody that sees that and their approach is, okay, what about this method is not working, and where can we fix that and tweak it to what it should be? Or, hey, we've gotten a little out of control here. Let's bring it back to when, the numbers were looking more positive, right? If it was a business. All right, well, we started doing this, and that's when the numbers decline. Let's stop doing that.
Right.
But my fear is that the younger generation will look at this method and say, all right, we put it in here one way and it comes out here a way that we don't like. Let's scrap all of it and start fresh.
Right.
And I guess my fear is that with one, you're gambling on the other idea that we haven't seen implemented versus seeing an idea that at one time worked and trying to curate it back to that.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is, and a lot of the reason of wanting to burn it down, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is that we're so far from where it was when it was working that it's almost like, fuck this shit. Right. I want it all to burn down. And I feel that.
Right.
And I acknowledge that when I hear it in however it's worded, but it freaks me out, especially, we're getting older. I mean, we're going to be 40 before we know it, 50. And, if we're blessed enough to live that long, it just scares me. And I don't want to be that old man yelling. I want to have trust in the youth. But I think a lot of it is that I know what I was like, and I don't trust younger me.
Oh, crazy.
Because younger me wanted to burn everything down.
Younger you did what he wanted.
And I'm glad
That's the difference.
Yeah. Yes.
So if the younger you did what he wanted and was, fueled in a direction for change, it'd be different.
A lot of it was anger, though.
So anger breeds results, dude. Straight up. If you're doing something angry, you're doing it with an intent.
It's passion.
Yeah.
Right?
There's some passion in there for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if we're talking about U.S. government,
I'm talking very wide.
Yeah, it's
but yeah.
I think widely, I think widely we're fine, because there's smart kids every day being born, and one day a smart kid is going to make a super group of other smart kids, and it's going to be a wrap, and shit's going to be better for sure. And that could be just me being hopeful and me being positive, but that shit's real as fuck. Like there's smarter kids being born every day with unlimited resources, because everyone wants to be a YouTuber, so there's unlimited resources how to be more smart.
Yeah.
We now are going to run into the AI part of our world that we talked about this podcast, more than half of it, where, AI is going to be used as a tool by these smart people, and they're going to make some serious change to the earth for sure. But the problem is that old yell at the man people that you're talking about, that's half of the problem, is that those people don't want to lose their power or don't want to use their wealth. Like you were talking about the grandfather makes it, then the father's son, right? That generational wealth. They don't want to lose that wealth. And that's been a problem in U.S. greed and U.S. government for forever. There's just so much greed and that thought that there's not enough for everyone to get of the resources like you were talking about before. When the reality is there is enough for everyone to get around, you just have to get around it. But it's the thought that everybody could have enough is like hard for some people to swallow. You know what I mean? I remember specifically when they were going to up minimum wage to like livable wage or whatever it was. My buddy, he works as like a construction worker, and he was trying to tell me that, you know, his value is more than someone who does fast food, right? I don't know why it's always fast food, but they always talk about fast food like it's a fucking it's like the worst job ever and deserves no fucking money. Fast food people deal with the worst, most angriest people, like in our country specifically. Like hungry people are fucking rude as shit. If you're hungry, you're probably fucking being rude. And then like when you're paying for something that you think is cheap and you want it to be fast, like you're being incredibly rude because you want it fast and cheap, right? So you're like all of these things that are like the worst ever. So he was telling me that he felt like his value was more than somebody flipping burgers. And that's what he said to me. And I'm like, dude, no, it's not. It's not at all. They're just there cooking a fucking cheeseburger for somebody. It's still a job that I believe that they should have a fucking livable wage. They're doing the same thing that you're doing. And granted, they might not be building a fucking house or like renovating a house, but they're still providing some service for someone that, you know, I think it deserves a livable wage where they're not like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills this month? That's fucked. And if you think that's okay, there's something wrong with you. You know, that could be you too. I don't know what you think, but like if you think that every person doesn't deserve at least, you know, food and water and a place to fucking sleep, you have never slept in your fucking car. And don't try to talk to me like it's something, because I have. And I've literally gone fucking weeks without knowing where I'm going to fucking shower. And I've never been to the point where I didn't know where I was going to not eat, because I was always smart enough to get enough money where I could eat or feed myself or go to a place where I'm going to get food. So I haven't had it so bad where I'm like, oh my God, where am I going to get my next meal? So if you're dealing with that, I'm really sorry, but I haven't had that where I'm like, oh my God, where am I going to fucking eat? But definitely, where am I going to fucking sleep? You know what I mean? Like, I lived in a van for a little while too. And when I lived in my van, like, it was all about, like, where am I going to fucking park the van at? You know, where am I going to park the van? Where am I good to sleep at? So, like, you can't sleep in the same spot, like, over and over again. People get suspicious. They call the fucking cops. Cops are come fucking asking questions. So, on that shit, you know what I mean? Like, I get that. And if, from the perspective of, you know, having enough money to put a fucking roof over your head, God forbid you have fucking kids. Like, this is a whole nother conversation if you have a fucking child, bro. You know what I mean? And, like, sure, they make fucking services that make it so it's easier, but it's still not fucking easy. It's not fucking, you know, they're not putting, like, the government's not putting a roof over your head just because you have a kid and they have a mouth to feed. That's not real. That doesn't happen. So that's where I think that I get more serious with it, is like, I think everybody deserves a living wage. You deserve to fucking be happy, you know, in some respect, and you can figure out what your happiness is, but you at least deserve to fucking be able to eat and have a roof over your head and not worried about where the fuck you're going to sleep tonight or going to fucking eat.
I guess, I mean, for me, my answer is much more complex. I'd have to go back to all that. And like, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, you're cool, yeah.
I think the big thing at the end is, if you're working, whether it's a 9 to 5 or, you know, 10-hour shift, 12 hours, whatever it is, I think if you're working hard, within a couple of years or whatever, I don't think that I don't, it's so hard to word this, because younger me thought it was as simple as pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Now, there's some truth in that, but there's more to the story. And it's like, so much of us have clinged on to like just what the left or the right or whatever is saying. And it's like, no, there's a whole in between that matters. And to me, what it boils down to is, if somebody's working, you know, and putting that effort in, regardless of what that job is, a living wage, as we're saying, whatever that number is, like, to be able to have water, food, and a roof over your head, no matter what that looks like, to just have that. If you're working, I don't see why that's not a possibility. But then you have like the whole structure that we have that we're kind of under. The wheels are turning, and it's like, well, somebody has to make this and somebody has to provide this and this and that. And I think what it boils down to is, I think things are like, the greed has taken over, where there is too much going to the top, and people are like, to where it is really affecting us here at the bottom.
Totally.
Like, I don't think that the amount of elderly people I see working at fast food places is just like, it bothers me every time. And I see it and I think, I'm sad. It makes me sad.
Did you see the 72-year-old Domino's woman? She's fucking delivering Domino's, and she fucking falls, bro, delivering Domino's. What's a 72-year-old woman delivering Domino's if she doesn't want to do that? You know what I mean? She's being forced to do that because she needs to make money. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this shit is fucked up, man. Like, it's not good. And like most people that have any level of empathy get that it's not good. Like, it's not a society that you want to live in. Like, it feels fucking gross unless you're a fucking piece of shit, an asshole. Because there's people like straight up that are like, no, like, you deserve, like, if you didn't make money in your life or you didn't make enough, because like money and success, again, this is a round conversation. Money and success are two fucking separate things, man. Like, money is a byproduct of success, but if your success is different and has no monetary value, it's separate. It's completely separate to you or whatever. But that's the fucking problem in the game with fucking money. It's like someone working a fucking minimum wage job, you know, they can't support themselves, you know what I mean? Let alone a family. And if someone who's just not fortunate enough to get a better position and that's all they got, like, you can't sit here and tell me like someone needs to work 2 or 3 jobs to support themselves. It's like, dude, that shit fucking sucks. When there's people that do fucking nothing and make an insane amount of money. You know what I mean? They do not, and they're lucky. Those people are fucking lucky and fortunate, you know, and filled with opportunity in their lives to put themselves in a position like that where there's a roof over their head just happens to cost $4,000 a month. You know what I mean? Versus like someone who's just has enough money to fucking buy groceries and pay for their fucking rent.
Yeah, I mean, there's the way fast food was described to me. Like, all right, when I was 16, the family that I was living with, they adopted me. They told me, like, I was thinking, man, summer's about to hit. I'm about to rock and roll. Right. And they're like, you need a job. And it just crushed me. But it taught me early, and they had me, I got a job at Chick-fil-A. And this was fast food. And I had previously had a job for a few months at McDonald's, like a year prior.
These are apples and oranges going on.
So, like, I already knew, like, what I was about to get into, but I was working with friends, like close friends that, like, one of them I was even living with, and it's like we all worked together and we made the best of it. But the way that the fast food industry job, wherever you were working, was, I guess, introduced to me was that this is a jumping off point. This is where you learn how to work under somebody. This is how you learn how to, you know, be respectful, how to count money, how to have tasks and goals. It was never described to me as like, hey, this is the job that's going to support you. And so there's the one side where I look at it like that, and it's like, well, don't go to work at a job like this and expect it to support you. And then there's the other side of me that says, well, we're kind of in a weird position where some of these people, I mean, I don't want to say they don't have a choice, but there are some times when choices are so limited that none of the options you have, or you're trapped in this like repetitive motion of like, all right, I have to work these 2-3 jobs in order to pay my bills. And it's like, well, I can go up to that person. I'm not going to do this. And I can go up to the person and say, hey man, if you were to just like put your effort and time into something else, you could be in a better place. Is that true? Possibly. But there's more to it. Right. When you're in that, like, I work one job, and sometimes I'm like, throughout the week, I'll be like, you know, I'm out of the house at 7:30 and I'm coming home at 7. There are some times where that happens like every night, and I feel like, where do I have a life? Do I have a life? Right. And then like I see the bigger check that Friday, and honestly, I don't care. Right. I don't want that bigger check. It's cool for my family, and but for me, it's like, well, what do I really value? And it's like being home with my family. So like, I guess I could live at a lower, I could have a smaller house. I could not have steak as often. I could not, you know, do a lot of things and have more time with my family. But there is a degree where that's not even possible with a lot of the jobs that are out there. So it's like, that's something I'm still trying to figure out where I stand. I don't have a specific place that I would go. I don't think it's as cut and dry. I think the world is changing so rapidly that a lot of the old tropes that we would, you know, say or that I would believe in, there's a little bit more to it. Right. And I think, like, I know we keep going back to AI, but AI is about to be a wrench in the system that I even think, like, just what is it? What's that? UBI, Universal Basic Income. I was totally against that, not because I didn't want people to have it, but I thought, are we just going to pull it out of thin air and then implode? Like, how can we do this properly? And now I'm looking at things and like, there is so much hurt. There's so much poverty when there doesn't need to be.
Straight up.
if we can figure out a way for, like, I'm actually finding myself, it's weird for me to even say that I want to know more about UBI. I want to hear about it. What are your plans? Wait, where are we going to get this money? Can we talk about this? I want to hear these opposing views because we don't talk about stuff.
Totally.
We disagree and we yell. And it's like, well, I'd like to hear more.
Yeah.
Let's come to the table.
You literally could just start. We could just start with rich tax, dude. Like the $1 billion tax. You just start there. I think it's like if you took like 1% of $1 billion tax and then gave it as universal income, it would be like enough for everyone to make $21 an hour, like $21 an hour for an 8-hour shift a day for nothing. And it would just it's like 1% or something from every corporation that makes $1 billion. And you could just give it, you could pay just the United States, like completely alone. That's not feeding other countries. That's just like the United States. And it's
so I have no doubt in my mind about what you just said,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what that would do to the country, how it would change it. So like, that's the stuff that intrigues me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We know that it's possible to do that. Okay. So like, I want to hear
no
people
one's
that
ever
are
done
way
it.
smarter than me. I want to hear them argue about what that's going to do 5, 10, 20 years down the line.
Right.
Is inflation just going to go up and we're going to be back down in the same position? Like, it just feels like we're in a place where we need to talk more.
Yeah.
And that human interaction that we keep going back to, that you have every time, you perform a song, every time I listen to a song or watch a film, I'm getting a human interaction, even if that person's not in front of me. And I just wish we were more open to not just art, but just each other in general.
Right.
I don't know. I guess that's where my hope is. I do have hope in the future. Maybe not if I look at something specific like just the young people, but if I look at just humans in general, I do have hope that there is answers to a lot of our problems and that somebody's going to find them if we just listen.
Yeah.
Because shutting each other
definitely have
out,
hope.
you're not going to find anything.
Yeah, totally.
But anyway, I don't know. I go on some rants sometimes, but that was just all my thoughts.
Yeah, dude.
Anything else you want to share about the album that we didn't cover?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the songs, some of them are conceptual. Like the Jewel of Cincinnati is written from the perspective of someone else, so everything in there is like all the lyrics are saying they're talking to me in the song, but it's like to me. So that's interesting. There's like other songs where like when you listen to them, the lyrics are like very straightforward, but it's like however you interpret it is like that's how I wrote it. I wrote it for you to figure out what it means to you. So if they're going to listen to the album, definitely just try to make it your own and get what you want out of it. You know what I mean? Cause I definitely have already gotten what I want out of it. Totally. Which is just writing it and writing listenable music. And I'm very happy that I wrote something that's, so amazing that I'm just so happy that it was me, at the end of it when I got to the end. So
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are you guys planning touring or anything else?
Yeah, so we're playing a record release show on June 9th at Philomoka, which is going to be awesome. And then we're going to do some touring over the summer. I got some shows booked. And then I'm hoping we can do some big, like probably start US touring, like probably like the end of the summer if I could swing it.
I would love to come out and see you guys.
Yeah, I would love you to be there.
Yeah.
Totally. It'd be amazing.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So do you have dates and stuff? You said that one is coming up.
Yeah,
When is that?
June 9th. It's at Philomoka.
Okay. Is that I don't know that. Is that
it's in Philly.
Why does that sound so familiar?
Philomoka, it's like over off Spring Garden. It's the nicest venue in the whole city.
Okay.
Like when we asked them if we could play there, I thought it was going to be a sure no, but like with Ultra-Lite, I'm asking, like I'm always asking, like because it never hurts to ask, and that's something I learned about with being in this band is like always ask because you don't know if they're going to say yes or not. So I asked Philomoka, I was like, hey, do you guys have this date open? Could I book a show there? And they were like, oh yeah, totally. And I thought they were going to say no. And Philomoka is like my favorite venue in the whole city next to the church.
Cool. I love the church. Oh,
yeah.
dude, the church.
Church is the best.
It just
for sure.
Every band sounds better there to me.
Yeah,
It's like
church is
it's
awesome.
just anyway. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Are there still tickets available? You think?
Yeah, there's probably
Yep.
still tickets up right now. By the time they hear this, hopefully they're all sold out by the time they hear this. But no, there's probably still tickets up.
Yeah,
for sure.
you're SOL if you're listening. Well, I'm going to probably try and grab something then.
So dope.
soon.
Hell yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to share? Or get into? I mean, we
yeah.
have all the time, or we can,
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, I don't.
If there's anything.
I don't know. I've done a lot with my life, and being 32 and like trying to still make music and still write it and still put it out, and it feels less of I say try, but it's not a try. I just make music, so it's like for me, it's like I'm just doing it anyway, and it's cool to like still be doing it, and have things to write about, which is awesome. I definitely when I was 18, I was like in my third or fourth band. I never thought that I would be in so many bands by the time I was 30. That was something that I didn't think would happen. I thought I would like, kind of land with a band at like 20 and then just like, okay, that's my band forever or something. Like it's kind of how I felt. And then after being through so many bands and like realizing like, music is an art and the art is a process and you just trust the process and let it happen. And that's how all it's been. So it's been really cool.
And if you go back to like your more, or I forget the word you used, but like where it was like very different.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning to now, is there anything that you look back on that you can like, that your old music still inspires some new music you're making? Or do you kind of just like, hey, I'm done with that. That's in the past and I'm going to let it lie?
I think a big thing is about the perception difference about what the song's meant to me then. Like looking back and being like, this song meant this to me then, and it means this to me now, and it being different is crazy for sure. Because I write stuff with such intent that when you go back and the intent's still there, and you remember like what you wrote about, but it just means something else now. It's so wild and very inspiring and helpful to go back sometimes and listen to old stuff. And yeah, I've been doing that actually quite a bit. I just played a solo set at Ortlieb's at Half Soul's open mic. He does them like every Wednesday, and I just played a solo set there. And I went back and listened to some old songs, to like play some old songs at the open mic and kind of kick it. And it was really cool, like listening to something and going back to that place. Like we talk about the tattoos, and like songs do that for me too. Like they'll take me right back, and it's with songs that I wrote, it takes me back to that moment, but now they just mean something else to me, where before it wasn't really like that, So time does that to you,
Yeah, it's like evolves.
Yeah.
Do you have stuff that in the past that you just can't like rehash or can't go back to?
Absolutely, dude. Yeah. I can think of like 2 or 3 songs right now that I'm like staring at. They're like on the shelf, and they're just like, you're just going to leave them there. I'm not going to listen to them. Someone else wants to listen to them, they can, but I'm not listening to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Did you ever listen to Pedro the Lion? Or David?
Yeah, I have. Okay. Yeah.
So I went and saw them when they toured again years later. So this was still years ago.
Yep.
And no disrespect to him, he's an artist, but like for me, I was really upset at the show.
Oh wow!
Like I went there and like they were something in my head, right?
Right.
And I know that they're human beings and they're not, I can't put them in a box. They're not an album. They're human beings, right? And I just listened to him kind of trashing a lot of his old music. And I'm like, yeah, we're here for that.
For that old music, yeah.
And I was like, but he's like, certain songs he wouldn't play. And I had to ultimately respect it. But I was like, I took it really personal. It's like, I paid to come out here. I supported, like I was so excited. And it wasn't even just that you were like, if he just didn't play some songs, that would have been fine. But it was like, he was so in disagreement with like, the style of the song or the lyrics or where it was. And I guess it makes more sense to me now, but in that moment it was like a shock to me. It's like I had to learn that I guess as people evolve, totally, things change.
They change.
And that's like, I don't have anything in my life that I can look back on like that. Maybe some writings, I used to write a lot and I can look back on certain things and I'm like, I'll see the title and I'll be like, I'm never going to delete this file. I'm also probably never going to read this again. Right. But I know it's there and it is what it is and it's a part of my life.
Yeah.
And does that sound like what music would be? It's like to a degree or can be?
Yeah. So when I think about that specifically, I think about Jawbreaker. Jawbreaker has a song called "Do You Still Hate Me?" and it's like it's a hit, it's a bop, and you listen to it, and it's like it has like really poppy lyrics, and like you just like you jive with it really well, and it's like really cool. And they never play it, and since they've gotten back together, they've never played it, and it's just a song it means something to him, and he's not gonna fucking play it because he doesn't want to relive that shit, and like. I respect him for that, but that song fucking rips, and it sucks that he's not going to play it again, but that's just how it goes. I just thought of something I want to talk about.
Yeah,
that's cool. So, Ali wrote, right? You know that about him?
Like I've read his like scripts and things like that and short stories.
Yeah, so like one of the things...
I thought you were about to tell me music for a second.
No, dude, he didn't write any music. That
I was
guy.
Like, wait a minute.
He didn't write any music. But something that I wanted to talk about specifically that I don't think we've touched on is Ali wanted to be remembered as a writer. And he got remembered as a motorcycle guy. And I remember him sitting on Munter's couch, and he's like, dude, I don't want to be fucking remembered as a motorcycle guy. And like all I've done, you know, for the past almost 10 years is motorcycle stuff. He's like, that's all anybody's going to remember me for. They're going to remember me for writing. And he would tell me about his scripts and all this stuff. And like, I remember a bunch of people got like the York and Sons logo and stuff because that's like what they remembered him as, right? That's their image of him and how they portrayed him. But he wanted to be remembered as a motorcycle guy. And that like, when he passed, I remember having that conversation with him and it being very fucking real. Like he didn't want to be remembered as a motorcycle guy. He wanted to be remembered for his writing. And it really helped me work on the Ultra-Lite stuff in a like, what do I want to be remembered for type way. And like, if I died right now, a lot of people would probably remember me as a piercer and not as an artist. And there would be a bunch of people that remember me as an artist, but a lot of people would remember me as a piercer. And like, I don't really want to be remembered as a piercer. And like that, how you see yourself versus like the realness of what happened to Ali and how he's currently being remembered by a lot of people, it's like chilling. And he gave me that perspective that like in his death and in his absence, I can really feel it and like hear people how they talk about him or how they will remember him versus how he wanted to be remembered. And there's a huge cutoff between the two. Yeah.
Dude, I never thought about that. I guess because being with him through all the steps, you know, for so many years, the motorcycle thing, like,
it's what made him money.
Part of him, yeah.
It's what made him money.
But he was never like super passionate about that.
Yeah.
You know, not to the same degree. That's really interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Do you know he went out and like worked in Hollywood for a while? Lee Daniels and all.
I know all about it. Yeah.
That was probably our biggest feud.
Really?
Between us is I watched his dog while he was gone. And I don't know if has he ever brought this up to you?
Not to me, no.
Because I had this.
You know, he's like, all positive. He never talks about the negative things. He never ever talks about.
I always felt it. Like because it was all right. So he had gotten this pit bull named Baby. He rescued her, and every day I came home from work, Ali was asleep on my couch,
right,
and like just the loudest snoring. It would just be snoring, and you know, I'm trying to think where I was going with that. I guess it was just a nice memory popped in. I kind of miss coming home and having to sleep on
your couch, totally.
But yeah, because he was always just waiting. He just wanted to hang out and like be part of our lives. And he ended up getting this dog, Baby. And I wasn't working at the time. Or no, sorry. I'd come home from whatever I was doing and he'd be there just beat from work and sleeping on the couch. So at one point he got this dog and I still wasn't working at the time. And he would drop her off to me on his way to Sprint.
Right.
And so I'd have this dog, you know, all day, and I fell in love with her and whatever. And then so when he went out to Hollywood, he couldn't bring her, at least not initially.
Right.
So he had asked me, like, you know, would you watch the dog? And I'm like, all right. I said, but we got to come up with some kind of ground rule of like, please don't call me in 2 years and say I want the dog back.
Right.
I was like, can we think of something? And it was like a very nonchalant conversation of like, I don't know, let's do like 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months, something like that. And then it was like, past that I get the call. And I was like,
nah, we already agreed on this.
I didn't say no. It was like, It was the first time where like somebody I cared about, like I was like, it was like this fork in the road.
Right.
Cause like I had a dresser, you know, and 2 of my drawers were for the dog. I'd open it up in the morning. She'd pull out an outfit. And like this was, like I loved this dog. This dog was like my life. I had, you know, I was still dealing with a lot of crap and I put like all my emotions into this. This dog was like my support dog, my friend, my everything. Like just, you know, more to me than she actually was.
Right.
And it was just this weird thing where I was like, I didn't say no. And he just kind of felt the tension and was like, you know, man, it's all good. Like, never mind. And it was one of those things that I don't know if it was bad for him, but I always felt some sort of way about it. And I was never able to let it go. Like, did I do the wrong thing here?
Right.
Should I have just said, no, forget it for you. Let's ship her out there.
Right.
It's like one of those things I can't let go of.
Damn.
It's just stupid because like I don't even know if he ever really cared.
He never brought that up to me. No, I don't think so.
But it's just one of those things in my life. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's funny because like I don't even know where I was going with that. It's like so much of Ali is in our memories.
In our memories, like, yeah.
Just the chance to talk about him with somebody else who has these stories too. Yeah. It's like it's refreshing. It's nice.
It's awesome.
It just feels good to talk and smile about him rather than being sad and alone.
Yeah,
right?
Dude, totally. That's definitely. It's so funny too because like after he passed, there was like a huge missing, like something missing out of my life for like, it felt like for so long. It was just like vacant, like this vacant spot. And, but I had like, he had like his passing taught me all these lessons and stuff that were like really, like I was just saying to you, like you really get to choose like how you want to be remembered, and, he like vocalized like, oh, I feel like I'm not going to get remembered the way I want to, I'm going to be remembered in a different way. And like, that helped me apply that to my life. And like, how do I want to be remembered? It's like very helpful. And like in that, I felt so much comfort in his passing of like him helping me. And like, around the time when he passed, I felt like myself, I was going through a lot of shit. And like, I felt like I was getting on like a suicidal shit. And like, I felt that way. Like I was like, not suicidal in like gun in my mouth type way, but suicidal like, I'm just going to walk into this traffic and whatever happens type of way. And his passing shut that door for me. Like I was like, man, I can't even think about that now. Like I got to keep on trucking. And there was so many little things like that had happened that were, I don't know. That was what had changed for me. Like, and when I would talk to him, I would just be thinking about all of the things that he set in stone and like laid out for me to like look at and observe, and like, what are the things I want to change about my life and make it different, with my friends or my relationships or stuff like that. It was in a way, it was like really helpful. Cause it's the permanence of death, it just makes it so intense.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things you can't choose to look away.
Yeah.
You
totally.
have to face it. Even like we were talking about earlier, you could drink and push it to the side, but it's like, this has to be dealt with.
Totally.
Yeah, man. I've never thought about that. Like what I want to be remembered for.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Totally.
I'll have to give some time to that.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, he definitely loved to write. Did he ever tell you about the steampunk?
Yeah,
that was like always the one he would get.
Yeah, he told me about that. His one that he was on was like the kid that was like trained as an assassin. You remember that one?
Yeah.
He went on that one for a minute. Like I want to like rehash that at some point for him and like re-release it as like him as like a weird ghostwriter. Like this is his idea. I'm just like kind of filling in the gaps because I remember a lot of the stuff that he talked about. And I'm sure that it's like with time, if I like asked around, somebody else also knows all of the story too, and then we can piece it together in a way that makes it not AI, and we're not asking AI how would Ali write this.
I just had this. I'll have to check it out and let you know. Years ago, like 12, 13 years ago, he had a computer, or he was getting a new computer, and I took his old computer and I pulled everything onto a hard drive.
Oh, no way. We're in some
I'm wondering if I
now.
Still have that.
Dude.
Because I know all his writings were in there because he wouldn't let me read, and I went right into the file and started reading his short stories and told him I was going to do it. I was like, I'm reading these stories, and that's how I'll help you.
That's a gold mine for our friend right there.
I wonder if that's there. I'll have to look. I don't want to get too excited. Let's assume it's not, but I will look into that.
I would look into it, dude.
I'm going to definitely look at that.
That could be amazing.
Yeah.
That could be some amazing stuff in there.
That'll make me forget about losing my messages.
That sucks for sure. I've definitely had that where I broke a phone and they wiped it without telling me, and I lost all my shit. And that has happened to me before, for sure. With like people that I'm never going to talk to, never again. So
it's hard. I mean, the positive thing I was trying to pull from that is that wasn't Ali.
Right.
Ali is in me, and he's in you, and he's in all the people that he interacted with. And that's what I need to focus on. And I didn't lose him. I just lost a piece of paper or whatever, text file that had something that resembled him, but it was not him. It didn't really work great, but I keep telling myself that. It's like, it made me feel better. And then, like I said, your song just kind of filled a little gap for me there. Yeah, man. He's a special dude. Did you know he tattooed?
Who?
Ali?
Ali tattooed? No, he did not.
I didn't know either. He started telling me he apprenticed. This was a long time. He never talked about this. But when we had the machines, he took the machine at one point and he tattooed, which I'm sure you've talked about religion at some point.
Yeah.
He's always searching, but never really never really dialed into anything.
Right.
So I jokingly said, because he wanted the tattoo, and I was like, well, I'll only do it if you put Jesus saves on my ankles. And so
wow.
I thought he would just be like, no. And I didn't believe him that he could tattoo. And next thing you know, he's like asking to borrow the stuff, had the stencil already set up, and he did it in Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola, whatever.
The font?
Font.
Yeah.
And put it on my ankles.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it was
I did
just
not know he did
it was like
that.
some random thing that he just never talked about, but it was funny. So yeah, so he's also a tattoo artist to a degree.
Not the jack of all trades.
No, yeah.
That's funny.
Nah, that's cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I had a great time here.
Yeah, it's been fun, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was
Thank
awesome.
you for coming.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really excited for the album to come out.
Thank
I really
you.
hope everybody
Yeah.
listening, please go check it out. I wouldn't have you here if I didn't like
Yeah,
it so much.
I
Even that
believe
song,
that.
I was just like instantly, I was like, I gotta have this guy out here. So I really do appreciate you coming out and tolerating some of my rants here.
No, it was cool.
And I am really excited for what the future brings
Awesome.
with music and everything.
Yeah,
so,
man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you guys.
Yeah.
Deep Fried Thoughts, it's the best podcast. Deep Fried Thoughts. Don't worry, we're working on a better intro.